Welcome to the Northwest Sports Fanatics YouTube channel. I am your host, Orion. I got a great show for you here today between the Chicago White Sox and the Seattle Mariners. First pitch is going to be here in roughly 5 minutes, so let's cue up the music, take a look at the thumb, and let's get into the starting lineups. Happy Tuesday, everyone. On the thumb, on the left, the Chicago White Sox catcher, Edgar Quero. And on the right, the best center fielder in the game, it's J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez. Now let's get into the starting lineups here first for the visiting Chicago White Sox. Leading off for the White Sox, playing left field, Sam Antonacci. Batting second, playing first base, Munetaka Murakami. Batting third, playing third base, Miguel Vargas. Batting cleanup, batting fourth, shortstop, Colson Montgomery. Batting fifth, playing second base, Chase Maidroff. Batting sixth, DHing for Chicago, Andrew Benintendi. Batting seventh, playing right field, Jared Kelenic. Batting eighth, playing center field, Tristan Peters. And batting ninth, catching today for Chicago, Edgar Quero. And on the mound for the White Sox with a 3-1 record, ERA of 4.61, it is Anthony Kay. And now let's get into the starting lineups for your Seattle Mariners. Leading off for the Mariners at DH, Rob Refsnyder. Batting second, playing center field, it's J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez. Batting third, playing left field, Randy Orosarena. Batting cleanup, batting fourth, first baseman, it's Nails, Josh Naylor. Batting fifth, welcome to the lineup, third baseman today, Patrick Wisdom. Batting sixth, playing right field, Connor Joe. Batting seventh, catching today, Mitch Garver. Batting eighth, playing second base, Cole Clutch Young. And batting ninth, playing shortstop for the first time for the Mariners, giving J.P. Crawford a day off, playing his normal position. Big home run in his second game in his career, but his first major league hit was a home run last night right here. It is the phenom shortstop, Colt Emerson. And on the mound for the Mariners to start the game with a 0-0 record, ERA of 3.38, it is Bryce Miller. And then after he ends up pitching, I assume, 4 or 5 innings, then they will give the reins to La Piedra, Luis Castillo. And then after that, the normal pen duties, at least that's what they say. But again, they may pivot from that depending on how the game goes. Tridents up. Let's go, M's. We're going to be shooting for 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Dark Passenger in the building. Daniel in the building. What's good? And we're going to get ready for first pitch here just momentarily. All right, Bryce Miller going to start it off here for the Seattle Mariners. Looked decent in his first start. And leading off for the White Sox will be left fielder Sam Antonacci. Batting second, Munetaka Murakami. And then batting third, Miguel Vargas. '50th anniversary for the Seattle Mariners, 40 plus years on the radio for Rick Riz. We dedicate the season to our guy, the icon, the number one, Rick Riz. And we are just getting ready to get started here with first pitch. Let me get everything situated here. Power in the building. What's good? Mike in the building. What's good? First pitch from Bryce Miller to Sam Antonacci. Pops it up. And out of play. Foul ball. Four-seam fastball. 97 miles an hour there by Bryce Miller. Top of the first inning, 0-0 here early between the White Sox and the Mariners. 0-1 pitch. Fouled back to the T-Mobile Bricks. No balls and 2 strikes to Sam Antonacci. It looks like the program that I'm using is having a little bit of some technical difficulties. You know, there's a little bit of a delay with me bringing up the photos of the players and whatnot, so bear with me today, and hopefully it'll end up just kind of fixing itself throughout the stream. Exciting win yesterday against Chicago, getting Colt Emerson's first base hit in a Mariner uniform, being a 3-run jack late in the game. Very exciting. Really the only downside is that pitch gets fouled off high and away by Antonacci into left field. No balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Antonacci. But, Edward Brazardo, ended up giving up another home run, and that's the third start in a row. He's given up a home run or an RBI when he's been out there since we don't have Brash or Spire, and hopefully that'll be something that'll get fixed as the season progresses. Pitch fouled off towards that third base netting and out of play. No balls and 2 strikes from Bryce Miller to Sam Antonacci. So we're going to see Miller, probably somewhere between 3 and 5 innings. And then we'll see Luis Castillo come in. I don't know for how many, maybe just a couple. And hopefully we end up having our regular guys in the pen come in and, finish the job. And then maybe even Andres Munoz if we're ahead at the end of the game. 0-2 pitch, low and away. But I like, this type of strategy, having Castillo, whether they want to say he's going to be coming in after Bryce, is essentially you're moving him to the pen. And, that would be the wise move based on how bad he's been for us this year. 1-2 pitch from Miller to Antonacci and a little dribbler up the middle. Cole Young is there with, oh, baby, Colt Emerson, I see you. Colt Emerson making the play. Throw to first, toe tap on the bag, and that is 1 away. And we got Colt Emerson playing his natural position for the very first time since J.P. Crawford is having just a scheduled day off. And obviously we should see a little bit better of a version, defensively, with Colt playing his regular position. And I've been dreaming of this, having Colt, at short and Cole Young at second base side by side for quite some time. And it's just kind of a crazy thing to finally see firsthand. First pitch to Munetaka Murakami, low and at the knees. Sweeper, 85 miles an hour, 1-0 count. One-0 pitch. And there for a strike, high and away. And there shouldn't really be anything issue-wise with the, the vocal part. It'll just be the stream itself, with the photos and whatnot. So at least so far from what I've noticed. Hawks in the building, what's good? Love in the building, what's good? Hawks 420 in the building, what's good? 1-1 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 1 strike to Munetaka Murakami. And it sounds like in his MLB debut, his parents weren't able to, be there, but they were there last night. And it only fitting, that he ended up getting a hit. And not only that, a 3-run jack, in front of the family. And he did get the ball back from the fan. 2-1 pitch. Fouled back to the TireRack.com sign. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Munetaka Murakami, but traded the ball for another ball that he signed in front of the fan and also gave a game-used bat, and I assume he signed that as well. So, again, I'm glad that Colt got that ball back, and, the fan ended up getting an autographed ball as well as an autographed bat, I assume, as well. So pretty sweet. And you got to meet him after the game and take photos, so that's pretty cool, too. 2-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. Down goes Munetaka Murakami, and that is 2 away. And it was very eerily similar to Ken Griffey Jr.'s very first home run, where he didn't really get all of it, but it was enough to be able to, go out of the park, so to speak, and again, sometimes even with those kind of weaker swings, you can still get a little bit of velocity and a little bit of follow-through power, and we saw that last night. Next up is Miguel Vargas. First pitch fouled off there by Vargas, 0-1 count. Yeah, and again, the core of, Cole Young, Colt Emerson, as well as Cal and Julio are going to be together for quite some time, so very exciting. Another strike in there to Miguel Vargas. No balls and 2 strikes with nobody on and 2 outs. Top of the first inning, 0-0 here early between the White Sox and the Mariners. Big swing and a miss on that last attempt. Four-seam fastball, 97 miles an hour, right down the middle. 0-2 pitch, and that is strike 3 looking. Miller is on a heater here early. It's Miller time, baby. Here we go. Nice job there by Bryce Miller. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Now let's see who's up next here for the Mariners in the bottom of the first inning, and let's see if we can get an early lead. Great job there by Bryce Miller. And again, 0-0 record, ERA of 3.38. He's only had 1 start, but he looked pretty good, and he'll pitch for a few innings, and then they'll bring in Castillo, maybe for just, I hope, just 1 or 2, and then they'll go into the regular bullpen after that. So they're going to end up doing this for who knows how long, but as long as Miller is the one that always starts, that's the way it should be. It never should be Castillo starting ever, and then Miller coming in after to clean up his mess. It should be Miller first always, and hopefully they're smart enough to realize that. Leading off for the Mariners at DH, Rob Refsnyder. So I thought we learned our lesson, by not putting Rob as a leadoff hitter. Now I do understand JP Crawford is off today, so they have obviously Colt Emerson, playing shortstop. But again, you could have put Cole Young, here as the leadoff hitter. That would have made a little bit more sense and had Refsnyder batting 5th, 6th, or 7th. But this is Dan Wilson. Batting second in center field, it's J-Rod Julio Rodriguez. And batting third, left fielder Randy Orosarena. So it looks like the photo problem that I had when I was doing the player intros, it looks like it's fixed, and it looks like it's coming up with no delay, which I'm happy to hear and see. And on the mound for the White Sox with a 3-1 record, ERA of 4.61, it is Anthony Kay, who's been pretty damn good, for the White Sox this year. First pitch to Refsnyder, in there for a strike looking from Anthony Kay, 0-1 count. Bottom of the first inning, 0-0 here early between the White Sox and the Mariners. 0-1 pitch. Low and away. Good eye there by Refsnyder. 1 ball and 1 strike from Kay to Refsnyder. One pitch from Kay. Low and away. Sweeper missing again on back-to-back pitches. Low and away. 80 and 81 miles an hour by Anthony Kay. 2 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and no outs. Bottom of the first. 0-0 here early between the White Sox and the Mariners. 2-1 pitch. Fouled behind the plate. Sinker 94 miles an hour there by Anthony Kay. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Rob Refsnyder. Yeah, so Castillo, they're not really necessarily calling it that he's coming out of the pen. They're calling it kind of like a split start, however fancy way you want to call it, but essentially he's coming out of the pen. But, they're going to have 2 starting pitchers, go who knows how long. You got to have Bryce go as long as he's, doing well. It's not like you want to pitch, Bryce only for a couple and then bring in Castillo for 3 or 4 and then we lose the game. So hopefully they're smart enough to go, 4 or 5 innings with Bryce, if not 6, and then go 1 or 2 with Castillo, no more than that, and then just go with your regular bullpen after that, and hopefully we can clean it up with Munoz for the win. 3-2 pitch. And Refsnyder gets a hold of that one, deep left field, but it's going to stay in foul. No. Yep. And just into the netting, into the crowd. And I thought that they might have a chance to grab that ball there in left field by Antonacci or Tristan Peters, but luckily it hits the netting and goes into the first couple rows. Count still is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Rob Refsnyder. Mike in the building, what's good? Harley in the building, what's good? Love in the building. Hawks in the building, what's good? All day in the building, what's good? Great to see Colt Emerson on this squad. 3-2 pitch and a little dribbler. Throw to first, and that is 1 away. Next up for Anthony Kay, the best center fielder in the game. It's J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez. 30 opposite field home runs since 2022. That's tied for 6th in MLB. Had a home run last night, and hopefully we'll be able to continue that trend. Let's go, J-Rod. First pitch to Julio, just gets a small piece as it dribbles down third base and foul. 0-1 count. And 0-1 pitch, little dribbler up the middle. Nice contact there by Julio Rodriguez, my boy. And again, this version of Julio we've been dreaming about, ever since his rookie year. And it took him 5 years to kind of figure it out. And usually, if you play 15 or 20 years in the MLB, usually your prime is somewhere between 5 and 10 where you really start figuring it out. It took him to year 5. A great job there by Julio Rodriguez with a nice single up the middle. And next up, a player that's been extremely hot, like Julio lately, Randy Arozarena. Let's see if we can get an RBI by Randy or potentially something bigger. First pitch, big swing and a miss there by Randy Arozarena, 0-1 count. Hard hit chart from last night, 7-14. Seattle doubled up Chicago in that hard hit category. And again, we definitely need the bats to come alive. Magic number, 5 runs, 7 to 10 hits. We hit that. We should have a good chance to win this game. And starting pitcher Bryce Miller needs to give up 3 runs or less. Same thing goes with Luis Castillo. It needs to be 3, not even 3. For him, if he's only pitching a couple innings, it's got to be like 2 or less. And hopefully he'll be able to do that. Big swing and a miss there by Randy, high and inside. Kay trying to jam him and does. No balls and 2 strikes to Randy Arozarena. 0-2 pitch, and he hits him. 96 miles an hour right on the arm/shoulder. And the White Sox have been hitting us pretty often, in this particular series. And I don't think it necessarily was dirty or on purpose, just kind of went inside and got him there on the elbow pad. And a lot of our players are, obviously padded up, so to speak. And Randy is good, shakes it off, dusts himself off. And now we have Julio at second and Randy at first. Let's see if we can get a big RBI by another guy that's been better, since being the second worst hitter in baseball, a few weeks back. Now one of the hotter players since April 19th, Josh Naylor. Let's go, Josh. First pitch is high and inside by Anthony K. 1-0 count. And Naylor is saying, did that hit him? Pup is doing, a little bit better. Obviously, getting all of the, bacteria and yeast out of her ear was, step number one. And now with the anti-itch medicine, that I'm giving her once a day, seems to be, working, still every once in a while, just like anybody or any pet, you're going to have, scratches and little itches here and there. But luckily it hasn't been too much, with that ear, because I don't want it to, bleed or, get any more pink or red than it already is. But she's in good spirits, and again, she doesn't have to wear a cone. And that's the best thing, I think, so she can sleep properly with me and, not have to, clunk around this big cone on her head when we go on walks and just, walking around in the house. So 1-0 pitch, takes a strike, swinging low and at the knees. 1 ball and 1 strike to Josh Naylor. Come on, Nails. Let's go, baby. 1-1 pitch, low and away. Okay, having a little bit of a meltdown here early, and honestly, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if we end up beating the White Sox in these first 2 games with a chance potentially to sweep them. Remember, we only won, 1 game out of 3. We should have won 2 out of 3 in Chicago, but we ended up having the bullpen kind of shit the bed in that 1 game. So hopefully we can get the dub here and, see what happens tomorrow. 2-1 pitch, little dribbler towards first base and foul. And tomorrow's game will be a little bit earlier. I believe it'll be at 1:10 Pacific tomorrow. K's 3-1 with a 4.61 ERA. So he's been one of their better pitchers this year for the Chicago White Sox. ERA is a little high, close to 5, but, definitely has gotten the bat and the offense to kind of back him up and help him get some wins. Throw to second, and Julio is safe. And again, normally we struggle, with left-handed pitching, but, lately we've been getting a little bit better, even with some of these weaker lineups with no Dominic Canzone and Luke Raley initially not playing, but maybe getting into the game a little bit later. Not having Cal and Donnie hurts, but bringing up Colt Emerson is exciting and gives us that juice and that lift that we needed. And again, I was looking at some of the, stat nerd websites. They still have Seattle, as a top 5 team in baseball, and these are from a lot of the stat nerds on, they really only have the Yankees and the Rays ahead of us, based off record and just, our roster, even though things aren't the greatest for us right now. I think, people don't realize, that they still think, that Seattle is still going to go on a deep run. They still have us as a top 5 team in baseball, believe it or not, as far as chances, to get to the World Series. And, again, the record isn't great, but again, they understand that we've had injuries and, some poor play, and the American League isn't very good this year. So again, we don't need to really freak out, with the record. We're in just, the position, that we're at, based on what's happened. 3-2 pitch, and that ends up being outside, and that is a walk to Josh Naylor. We like this. Bases loaded with 1 out. Let's go. It's going to be a 3-team race, it looks like, between the Athletics, the Rangers, and the Mariners. But, they had the Yankees and the Rays, obviously with the better record, playing better than us at this point. But then they also have, obviously, the Mariners as that next team in the American League. And then below us would be like the Guardians and then a few others. So it makes sense, based off the talent that we have on our roster, pitching staff, and, our hitters and our bench and our depth. 1-0 pitch to Patrick Wisdom. Low and at the knees, 2 balls and no strikes to Patrick Wisdom. Getting a chance to play at third base. And again, we'll see what Pat can do for us here today. And then obviously they got, the Dodgers and the Padres and the Braves and everyone in the National League Central, typically above 500, as like, teams that are, doing well. And obviously we know not every team in that National League Central is going to stay above 500. Eventually things will even out and whatnot. So we'll see if it ends up being like the Brewers or the Cubs or whoever it may be that kind of pulls away later in the year. But we know that the Braves and the Padres and the Dodgers are legit, just like the Yankees and the Rays. And even though our record isn't great, they still believe in us. And again, they wouldn't, have that, for the betting websites and the stat nerd websites if they didn't really believe it. So 2-1 pitch, fouled off and out of play there by Patrick Wisdom. And you see K is really working the inside, trying to jam the hitters. But he's getting a little too close to comfort on some of these batters, hitting Randy in the elbow, almost hitting Naylor in the next at-bat. And let's see if we can end up getting an RBI or a walk here out of Patrick Wisdom. AAA player from the Tacoma Rainiers. 2-2 pitch. And Wisdom fouls that back. Had just one at-bat, earlier on. And again, giving J.P. Crawford a day off. You can move Colt Emerson to his regular position. And again, we've been flirting with the idea of a lot of this AAA talent, and with all the injuries that we've had, there's going to be, some recognizable names and some unrecognizable names that are going to get a chance to play, every day or in the pen. Throw to second. And looks like they get the fielder's choice. The run comes home. Julio is safe. And runner at first, Patrick Wisdom, is safe, and that is 2 away. And I always like when we can take an early 1-0 lead. Nice job there by Patrick Wisdom. That's a little capture of what he looks like there. Next up is Connor Joe with runners on the corners at first and third with 2 outs. First pitch to Connor Joe, low and away with a sweeper. 1-0 count, 81 miles an hour there by Anthony K. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. 1-0 pitch, low and away. Good eye there by Connor Joe. 2 balls and no strikes from K to Joe. And again, even if the record is, pretty good, lefties have really been, kind of our kryptonite, so to speak. But, lately we've been a little bit better, and that's a good thing to see, as the season is, progressing. We're about a quarter of the way, through the season already, which is kind of wild. But again, we're just going to get better and better, and pretty soon we'll catch up, to the Yankees and the Rays. I truly believe that, as the season progresses, and, we'll see what happens, as long as we can continue to get healthy and, obviously play up to our potential. We definitely are going to be one of the better teams, I believe, this year, even with all this adversity that we've had to face within the first, 49, 50 games. 2-1 pitch, fouled off behind the plate. 4-seam fastball, 97 miles an hour there by Anthony K. Two balls and 2 strikes to Connor Joe. Come on, Connor. Let's see if we get another RBI here. Check swing from Connor Joe, and it goes towards first base and foul, out of play. 97 mile an hour, 4-seam fastball. And he's already at 29 pitches. So again, this is great, getting the pitch count up for a guy that's got a good record, even though ERA is closer to 5, but he's been one of their better pitchers. If we can get him out by like the 5th inning, potentially maybe even sooner if we rough him up, that would definitely, probably heighten our chances, on trying to be able to get this dub, even with the kind of lower lineup, going against the lefty. Anytime you got, Connor Joe in there and Rob Refsnyder and now Patrick Wisdom, it's not ideal, but, having Colt Emerson there, makes us feel pretty damn good, about how things have gone, based on when, we ended up getting the call up a couple days ago and, based off that 3-run jack. So 3-2 pitch and Wisdom is walked. Here we go. Great take there for Connor Joe. And Joe gets the walk. And now we got Joe, Wisdom, and the squad with bases loaded for Mitch Garver. Nice job there by Connor Joe. Good eye. Mitch Garver next up on deck. And now you're going to end up having a mound visit. And on deck would be Cole Young. And if somehow, some way we can keep it going, then we get our guy, the phenom, shortstop, Colt Emerson. And again, Cole and Colt are fantastic. And again, when we end up seeing them play defense together, it's going to be something that we've never seen before, based on young prospects coming up around the same time with this kind of talent. And obviously, if you go back into the, Alex Rodriguez era, really the only Mariner that a lot of us fans don't claim, just based on, his actions, not necessarily just in Seattle, but outside of Seattle, on the field and off the field. We already knew what we had with him before he ended up taking the longest baseball or the biggest baseball contract with the Rangers, 10 years, $250 million, which was a big deal back in the day. First pitch to Mitch Garver, popped it up and out of play. One career grand salami for Mitch Garver, July 27th, 2021 versus the Tigers. And again, if he can get a piece of this to make it 2-0 or even the best case scenario 5-0, that would be phenomenal. But I'll take an RBI single or a walk if we can get it. 0-1 pitch and a little dribbler towards third base and foul. And I love that we're getting the pitch count up here on Anthony K already. Bottom of the first inning, bases loaded, 1-0 Mariners. With 2 outs, Anthony K on the mound, Mitch Garver in the box. Yeah, well, Rivas is in AAA now, so he already got sent down. So, they're just trying to, flirt with the idea of getting some of these other guys a chance, before Victor Robles comes back, as well as Cal and, Brendan Donovan. So, it's kind of interesting, to see who they decide to bring up and when, but, we'll just have to be able to hope that it works out. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and down goes Garv, and that ends up being out number 3. We leave 3 stranded, but at least we get on the board after a meltdown from Anthony K. And again, it, could have been, more. And again, we don't need to necessarily be greedy, but we want to make sure we take advantage of opportunities when they're, placed in front of us. Was really hoping that we could get at least one more, but hopefully with K having this early meltdown, that eventually it'll happen in the second or third inning. If he continues to pitch, a little wild and he's off his game, we'll take it. Just got to be a little patient. Our time will come. And at least we ended up scoring a run rather than getting nothing. Now let's go to the top of the second inning and see who's up next here for the Chicago White Sox. Next up for the White Sox in the 4-hole, shortstop Colson Montgomery. Batting second in the 5-hole, second baseman Chase Mydroff. And batting third in the 6-hole, DHing Andrew Benintendi. Trident's up. Let's go M's. 29 subs to go to 24,100. Looks like we gained a sub since the last commercial break, so appreciate you. 28 subs to go to 24,100. Shout out to our female viewership across the globe, as well as everyone watching in the United States, Canada, Mexico, South America, Asia, and beyond. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Our global viewership has been growing through the roof, as well as our female viewership. And it looks like we're at 49 likes. We're halfway to our initial goal. On the likes, we're at 49, 51 to 100. And we're still looking for our first dono on our dono train. Bryce Miller on the mound. Colson Montgomery in the box. First pitch to Montgomery, drills one towards first base and foul, out of play. Slider 88 miles an hour there by Bryce Miller. No balls and one strike with nobody on and no outs. Top of the second inning, 1-0 Mariners with a Patrick Wisdom grounding into a fielder's choice. Julio scoring from third, 1-0 Seattle. We'll take it. Oh, 1 pitch, high and away with that knuckle curve missing by Miller. 1 ball and 1 strike to Colson Montgomery. 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss with a slider high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes with nobody on and no outs. Top of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle. Tridents up. Let's go M's. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Montgomery calls time. 1-2 pitch from Miller to Montgomery. High and inside. Four-seam fastball. High and tight missing. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Colson Montgomery. Two pitch from Miller. Right down the middle. 4 strike 3. Let's go. Bryce Miller is looking phenomenal. And again, I'm so happy that he's back so we don't have to deal with Luis Castillo for fucking 6 innings. Way to bring the electricity. And it feels like he, has got a little bit more control with that high heat that he would bring, just like with Wu, and we know that they can bring, that high heat. And it's just really about, finding the accuracy when you're throwing, typically 93 to 98. And nice job there by Bryce Miller. And that is 1 away. Next up is Chase Mydroff. First pitch to Mydroff, high and away, four-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour, 1-0 count. It's kind of crazy to think, that Logan Gilbert now will be the worst pitcher in our starting 5, but that really shows us how great we fucking really are, with the pitching. We get rid of our weakest link in Luis Castillo, move him into a split squad with Miller or in the pen, and then you got, obviously George Kirby, who's balling, Brian Wu looking fucking great, right? Emerson Hancock looking pretty good more times than not, even though we don't give him all the run support all the time. And then obviously Miller is back. And then you got Logan Gilbert, who was terrible in his first 2 starts, has looked good in a couple, but still, if there's a pitcher close to Castillo, it's him. And hopefully we can get Gilbert closer, to Miller and Emerson Hancock. And if we can do that, then we'll really have no weaknesses in the starting lineup. 2 balls and 1 strike to Chase Mydroff. 2-1 pitch. Big swing and a miss by Mydroff right down the middle. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Mydroff. And we've already seen Logan Gilbert be an all-star, George Kirby be an all-star, Brian Wu be an all-star. And who knows, maybe one day we'll even get Bryce Miller, to be an all-star as well. And then eventually, we'll have Cade Anderson get called up and, they'll have him in the 5. Whenever that may be. Big swing and a miss, high and away. Four-seam fastball, 97 miles an hour. Bryce Miller looking fucking great. I love what I'm seeing here out of Bryce. And again, for a player that was injured, he's looking a hell of a lot better than George Kirby and Logan Gilbert did last year when they came back from their injuries. Miller has missed a lot of time, but again, he's looked like they prepped him properly. They didn't rush him too soon, and we're getting the benefit, obviously here now. Next up is Andrew Benintendi. First pitch, knuckle curve, low and at the knees, 1-0 count. And honestly, we need this, because again, Castillo and Gilbert have been untrustworthy, as well as Andres Munoz and, a few of our guys in the pen. So to actually have someone as a pitcher, kind of exceed expectations, in his first couple starts is exactly what we need, and again, the last thing that we need is Castillo to be bad, Miller to be bad, Gilbert to be bad, and then we can only trust Kirby as well as Wu and Hancock. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing here from Miller. 2-0 pitch. Fouls that one out of play towards right field. Four-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour there by Bryce Miller. 2 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and 2 outs. Top of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle. Trident's up. 2-1 pitch. Popped up. Shallow left field. Randy is there. And easy peasy lemon squeezy. 3 up and 3 down. And we still got the 1-0 lead. And again, you know, a lot of times when we get a run or 2 or 3, what typically happens, the other team, you know, gets it right back immediately. So it's nice to be able to have this 1-0 lead and kind of soak it in. And then hopefully we'll be able to add on a little bit more here in the bottom of the second inning. And based on how Anthony Kay has pitched, you know, it might be a good probability that that could happen. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Let's go to the bottom of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle. Next up for the Mariners, in the 8-hole, second baseman Cole Clutch Young. Batting second in the 9-hole, shortstop Colt Emerson. And back at the top of the order, leadoff today, DHing 0-for-1, Rob Refsnyder. And again, I would assume that Dan should learn Refsnyder shouldn't be leading off fucking ever. You know, again, with this particular lineup with Refsnyder, Julio, Randy, Naylor, Wisdom, Joe, Garver, Young, and Emerson, you know, again, there's a couple logical choices. If JP's not playing, and you don't want Julio to lead off, even though we've seen him do it before, I'm totally fine with Julio batting 2 or 3. But again, instead of Refsnyder, you got Cole Young sitting there. He could do lead off. And hell, you could even put Colt Emerson as a leadoff hitter, if we're really being honest. But Cole would be the natural choice, and then having Refsnyder bat, you know, 6th, 7th, or 8th. But again, I don't know why, you know, they're having Refsnyder start the game as the leadoff hitter. They should never have a game where he's a leadoff hitter. I don't care who's playing, you know. But again, hopefully Dan will be able to realize this and make the proper adjustment. Bottom of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle. And honestly, the way that, you know, Cole Young plays, he kind of plays like a leadoff hitter, you know, even though we kind of maneuver him in the lineup 6 through 9, you know, but he is a guy that could potentially, you know, lead off for a game or 2 as a fill-in guy. You know, again, I feel that, you know, Cole can pretty much play, you know, anywhere 1 through 9. It just kind of depends on who else is playing. Bottom of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle. First pitch in there to Cole Young is a strike looking with a sinker, 92 miles an hour, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, low and away, getting away from Caro, the catcher there for Chicago. 1 ball and 1 strike from Anthony Kay to Cole Clutch Young. 1-1 pitch from Kay, low and away, sweeper missing. 2 balls and 1 strike to Cole Clutch Young. Bottom of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle with nobody on and no outs. And we got that 1-0 lead with a Patrick Wisdom grounding into a fielder's choice. He's getting a chance to play third today since JP has just a rest day, and they decided to put Colt Emerson in his natural position for the very first time in a Mariner uniform, which is shortstop, so he can play next to his buddy Cole Young, who's going to be at second. And again, that's going to be the future of the Mariners moving forward, you know, with those 2 people in those spots. 2-1 pitch fouled off there by Cole Young. 2-2 pitch. Fouled out of play, behind the plate. Sinker, 95 miles an hour there by Anthony Kay. 2 balls and 2 strikes with nobody on and no outs. Bottom of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle. 2-2 pitch, low and away. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Kay to Young. You know, and again, you know, once, you know, if they switch pitchers and they go to a righty, I mean, it wouldn't really make sense to have Luke Raley lead off or Dominic Canzone leading off. So if that's the case, why the hell do you have Refsnyder leading off, right? Three-two pitch, high and away, and a nice walk there by Cole Young. And then Cole still is still a kind of a work in progress as far as hitting. Obviously, defending is his strong suit, you know, and he still has a ways to go, you know, as a young player, but I know he'll get better and better. All right, next up is Colt Emerson. Let's go, Colt. Colt's got a little bit more, you know, pop in his bat. But again, he's just as good of a defender as Cole Young. And again, I just can't wait to be able to see this dynamic duo on defense in the infield. And then we got Julio in center in the no-fly zone. Very exciting. 0-1 pitch, low and away. Four-seam fastball missing there by Anthony Kay. 1 ball and 1 strike to Colt Emerson. And again, I've been following this guy since he's been in the farm, since we drafted him, and a lot of hype. And I know a lot of the others in the room have been paying attention, and it's just kind of an exciting thing to finally see Emerson and Young together in the lineup. 1-1 pitch, little check swing. Did he go? No, he did not. Count now is 2 balls and 1 strike from Kay to Emerson. Go, Colt. We know you can do it, baby. Not only defensively, but offensively as well. 2-1 pitch, fouled back to the T-Mobile bricks. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Colt Emerson. Two pitch from Kay, and Emerson crushes that one into left field, out of play. And I like the fact that we have a lot of players that can play multiple positions. We already, saw that experiment with Dylan Moore last year where they hung on to him too long just because he could play like 5 positions. But it's nice to be able to have players that actually have skill. No disrespect to Dylan Moore, but guys like Donnie and Cole Young and Colt Emerson, that can play second base, shortstop, third base if needed, and whatnot. And obviously you can throw any of those guys in the DH spot also. But again, we just need to figure out, how we can get Luke Raley playing every day, no matter what. Since he has, some of the best statistics for the Mariners at this point. 3-2 pitch from Kay, and fouled back behind the plate by Emerson. Good at bat here for Colt. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Kay to Emerson. Xavier in the building. What's good, brother? 3-2 pitch from Kay to Emerson. Big swing and a miss. That was a good at bat, but just couldn't get that pitch that he was looking for, and missed that strike that was on the corner, just by maybe a few milliseconds there. Down goes Colt, and that is 1 away. Next up, leadoff hitter 0 for 1, Rob Refsnyder. First pitch to Refsnyder, in there for a strike looking, 0-1 count with that sweeper. Yeah, but there's no universe where Rob should be fucking starting as the leadoff hitter, no matter what. Even if we have a shitload of injuries, it just doesn't make any sense. If you want him to play, have him bat 6th, 7th, 8th, not, lead off. But, I guess that's Dan for you. 0-1 pitch, takes another strike there. No balls and 2 strikes with a runner at first. Cole Young with 1 out. 0-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. And again, 3 pitches and then an out. I mean, you might as well have just Luke Raley play. If you're going to get at bats like that, I would rather see Luke Raley swing 3 times and strike out lead off than having Rob Refsnyder play ever. But, it is what it is, I guess. Next up is Julio Rodriguez. 1 for 1 so far today with a single up the middle. 255 average, 8 homers, 21 ribbies, but has started to heat up after the first 10 games where him and Cal, as well as Naylor, all struggled. But obviously we've seen Julio and Naylor, pick up the pace. And Cal tried to, but ended up going on to the IL after his injury. And he definitely was on a big slump. 1-0 pitch. And Julio fouls that off himself as he hobbles towards first base. Hopefully he's okay. We definitely have had a number of deflections, from, other teams hitting our catcher, as well as, batters, fouling pitches off themselves, which is not ideal. We're one of the most banged up teams in MLB, not just in the American League, but in the National League overall. And the last thing that we need is, for a player like Julio to injure himself, off a swing and have a baseball go off his knee / lower thigh, and then having, him to exit. So hopefully he'll be able to tough it out, and takes one right there on the top of the knee where there's no padding, and hopefully he's okay. Julio's a tough SOB. He'll walk it off, as he's trying to do so now. Bottom of the second inning, runner at first, Cole Young with 2 outs. An early 1-0 lead here for the Mariners on the White Sox. We need payback for only winning 1 game out of 3 in Chicago a few weeks ago. And again, winning 2 out of 3 or all 3 games would be great. Fuck, Julio fouls it off himself again. Man, what is going on with this team? We got like the worst luck possible. So after he fouls one off and has to take a few minutes to gather himself, what happens? Fouls another one off. And instead of it hitting him in the right knee, he gets hit on the left knee. Man, holy moly, right on the left shin. Covering all body parts off these deflections. Brutal. Walk it off, Julio. Julio might have a couple strawberries after this game is over. A couple nasty bruises for sure. And we've been getting a few of those with guys getting hit like JP, in the arm and in the back yesterday too. 1-2 pitch. Julio does not foul that one off himself, thankfully. I don't know if I can handle 3 times in a row there. Pitch is out of play. Randy trying to give some hope for encouragement there. One-two pitch from K to Julio. And a little dribbler up the middle. Run, Cole! Run, Julio! And Julio gets out just in time. And down goes Cole Young, getting stranded there. Nice hustle there from Julio, considering, he ended up fouling off 2 pitches, one onto his right knee and one onto his left shin. Good defense there by Anthony K, as well as the White Sox defense. End of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle. All right, let's see who's up next here for the White Sox as we go to the top of the third inning. Next up for the White Sox in the 7-hole, right fielder, the former Seattle Mariner and Atlanta Brave, Jared Kelenic. Batting second in the 8-hole, center fielder, Tristan Peters. And batting third in the 9-hole, catcher, Edgar Caro. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. End of the second inning, 1-0 Seattle. Gained another sub since the last commercial break. Appreciate you. 27 subs to go to 24,100. See where we're at on the likes. How close we are to 100. We got 187 in the room. And we're at 68. We're making some ground. All right, we're at 68 likes, 32 to 100. And we're looking for our first dono on our dono train. And obviously everything that we end up getting here for the next few days will help out with the Paisley Pup Vet Fund, where I had to go to the vet just yesterday. And again, anything that can be done would be greatly appreciated. So far, so good here for Bryce Miller. 18 four-seam fastball, 4 sliders, 2 knuckle curves, 2 splitters, 1 sinker, and 1 sweeper. And even though this has been a small sample of Bryce Miller, only in his second start, I'll take this version of Bryce Miller over, Luis Castillo and Logan Gilbert any day of the week, at least based on what we've seen so far this year out of Gilbert and Castillo, especially Castillo. But again, after Miller exits, Castillo will come in and hopefully doesn't shit the bed and lose the game for us. And obviously we'll have a better chance if we're only going to have him pitch a couple innings, rather than having him pitch, try to pitch 6, where he can end up being clean for an inning or 2, but then it just seems like it's inevitable. He'll end up giving up 4 to 8 runs, Luis Castillo, and him pitching only 1 to 3 innings sounds a hell of a lot better. Preferably him pitching just 1 inning, a half inning, in the pen. But again, if they're going to go with this experiment because they don't want to hurt his feelings and have him take a big ego hit, so be it. But if he struggles and while they have him pitch 2 to 3 innings, then you got to reduce it even more, right? You can't have him try to go 6 and then try to go 3. And if he still sucks then, and, you want to make sure you give him just 1 half inning, if it comes to that. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and another punch out there for Bryce Miller. It is Miller time. I like what I'm seeing. Nice job, Bryce. Down goes Jared Kelenic. And that is 1 away. Great movement, great high-end velocity, great location. And Bryce has already got 5 Ks with no walks. Someone pinch me, I'm in heaven. And again, I'm so happy that we have this version of Bryce, considering that Gilbert and Castillo have, been disappointments this year. There's still a chance for Gilbert to get, back to where he was. But I have zero faith in Castillo. Besides just being a pen guy. First pitch is high and inside, 1-0 count to Tristan Peters. 1-0 pitch, high and inside again. And Garver is challenging. Let's see where we get on this particular pitch off the ABS. There we go. We just get the corner. Good challenge there by Mitch Garver. 1 ball and 1 strike instead of a 2-0 count is music to my ears. I love the ABS. We don't have to worry about bitching about the umps every inning like we did in years past, and it's, done the job. It made these umps, more, obviously, committed to their craft. They, obviously can't be Bush League and hold grudges and, just call the game the way they want to. And, I think the game is drastically improved with the ABS. 2-1 pitch. Popped up and out of play. Four-seam fastball, 97 miles an hour there by Bryce Miller. And I think the only people that don't enjoy the ABS are the umps, having to hold themselves accountable, especially the shitty ones that have bad vision or that are getting old or that would hold grudges, against certain players. No matter what, certain strike zones were bigger and smaller for certain players. There's no doubt about that. I mean, even though they're supposed to call the game right down the middle, but we know that wasn't really the case. Pitch fouled off, low and away. Four-seam fastball, 97 miles an hour. There by Bryce Miller, who's looking very impressive in his first 2 starts, thankfully. Hancock has been good. Wu and Kirby have been great. And again, Miller is looking like Wu and, Kirby. He's looking like he's on that level. Maybe, and again, Hancock is definitely, been pretty impressive. He had that 14K game a few weeks back or a few days back, but again, we haven't gotten him enough run support. Little line drive to Colt Emerson, and you can see that touch, and that is 2 away. And again, if you guys love Cole Young defensively, Colt Emerson is on that same level and sometimes even higher, than Cole, believe it or not. And we know Cole leads, obviously the American League with the most saved runs. He has more than 10, based on second baseman. And once we end up getting Colt Emerson playing every day at short over JP, it's not going to be that long before he ends up being one of the top guys, if not the top guy in saving runs at that position as well. He's that fucking talented. I mean, he'll make some Derek Jeter type of plays where you're like, whoa, how did he do that? But that's the talent that both those players have. 0-1 pitch to Cairo, in there for a strike on the corner. Beautiful placement there with Bryce Miller. And also I like this, Bryce Miller version that we're getting in 2026 because he's doing it without Cal. You're doing it with, Garver, and you're going to be doing it with Pareda for a little bit longer. So nice to be able to get some good reps for these guys. 0-2 pitch, little dribbler there. Throw to first from Patrick Wisdom to Josh Naylor, and 3 up and 3 down. Mariners are looking pretty damn good here, early, especially with the, weaker, righty lineup. Anytime you have a lineup normally, where you got Rob Refsnyder playing, right? You got Connor Joe playing, and then you got Patrick Wisdom, playing essentially that would have been like a, like a Leo Rivas. So essentially you got a few guys in this lineup and you have Mitch Garver. So you got Ref Snyder, Joe, Wisdom, and Garver. You got 4 guys out of 9 that you expect nothing. So if you get something out of them, great. But then we actually have some amazing players, right? Julio, Randy, Naylor, Cole Young, Colt Emerson. So, even though we only have half of the lineup that we trust, those 5 guys can carry the load. And then if we get anything, I'm saying anything, 1 hit, a piece, out of Ref Snyder, Wisdom, Joe, or Garver, or even getting a walk here and there, stolen bag, just something positive, it could really help our chances on, not only winning this game, but, obviously doing it in some kind of way. Let's go to the bottom of the 3rd inning and see who's up next here for Seattle. Next up for the Mariners in the 3-hole, left fielder who's extremely hot this year, Randy Arozarena. He may have some issues with hustle and ground balls in left field, but as far as a hitter, one of the more underrated hitters in the game. Batting second in the 4-hole, first baseman, it's Nails, Josh Naylor. He had a walk in his first at-bat. Let's see if we can get a big hit. And batting third, getting a chance to play third base, 0 for 1 with an RBI, third baseman Patrick Wisdom. And again, we've already gone through the Leo Rivas experiment, and we know that Leo is a AAA player. So for them to give someone else a chance in Wisdom, I don't got a problem with that one bit. So. And we got Anderson Hancock on the mound tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to get run support for him when we play at 1:10 Pacific. All right, Anthony Kay on the mound and Randy Arozarena in the box, who got hit by a pitch by Kay on the elbow in his first at-bat and almost gets hit again. First pitch, low and at the hips/knees, and Randy has to kind of duck out of the way, 1-0 count. Sweeper 80 miles an hour by Kay. 1-0 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and no strikes to Randy Arozarena. Yeah, Munetaka Murakami is playing. 2-0 pitch in there for a strike. But again, if you're, going based off parlays and bets, it's not like he's going to homer every game. He's been one of the top 2, top 3 guys, obviously, with Aaron Judge as well as Kyle Schwarber in home runs, but it's not like he's going to homer every game. 2-1 pitch, fouls that one behind the plate. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Randy Arozarena. Come on, Randy. 2-2 pitch. Little dribbler. Throw to first. And just in time. That was close, though. Good hustle by Randy. And hustle and Randy are usually, 2 things that we don't say together. But, good defense there as he grounds out to the shortstop. Colson Montgomery getting that out. Next up is Nails, Josh Naylor. Naylor versus the White Sox. He's batting .563 with a homer and 4 ribbies. First pitch, big swing and a miss there by Naylor, 0-1 count. Trident's up. Let's go M's. 0-1 pitch from K to Naylor, and fouls that one off himself. I don't know what the hell is going on with the Mariner players, hitting themselves, off the foul tip. But gosh, we got to get everyone padded up, from the arms and the legs. And we get beaned pretty often lately, but again, some of these, hitting them, that one right there in the calf, and it looked like it hit him right behind the pad, based off the follow-through swing. And now the trainers are looking at Naylor. And the last thing that we need is, Julio and Naylor not being able to be available. I mean, we already have no Cal. We have no Donnie, no Brash, no Spire, And again, Victor Robles is getting closer to coming back. He's been getting some reps with the Tacoma Rainiers, and sounds like he's getting closer. And that could give us a little bit of a boost and a lift, defensively in right field, as well as a DH or someone that could come in and pinch run and, steal a bag and give us some juice as well. But hopefully Naylor is okay as the trainers and Dan Wilson end up going back to the dugout. Josh is a tough SOB like Julio, and hopefully he'll be able to fight through the pain there and find a way to get on base here. Bottom of the third inning, 1-0 Seattle. O2 pitch from K to Naylor, low and away with the sweeper. Missing there by K. 1 ball and 2 strikes with nobody on and 1 out. Bottom of the third inning, 1-0 Seattle. Let them know all day. 1-2 pitch from K. Little dribbler towards first base and foul. 50th anniversary for the Seattle Mariners, 40 plus years on the radio. Riz is retiring this season, so we dedicate every game on the channel this year to our guy, Rick Riz, the legend and icon. 1-2 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes from K to Naylor. He's already at 67 pitches. I like that. And we're only in the third inning. He won't last that much longer. 2-2 pitch. And Naylor pops up. Should be a routine play here for Munetaka Murakami at first. And it is. And that is 2 away. Next up for the Mariners, getting a chance to play since we sent Leo Rivas down back to AAA. And that's kind of where he belongs, if we're really being honest. Patrick Wisdom. And let's see what Wisdom can do. He already ended up getting a fielder's choice to score our first run of the game. Let's see if he actually can get a legit hit before this day is over. Come on, Pat. And I did watch a lot of spring training games and actually did a few on stream while we were waiting for the season to start. And, Wisdom, in AAA, on the Tacoma Rainiers, pretty solid player, but again, as everyone knows, just because you're good in AAA doesn't mean you're going to be good in the pros. 1-0 pitch. Takes a strike there from K to Wisdom. First pitch was a sweeper high and away, 80 miles an hour. Let's see if Wisdom can have the patience in the box here. Second pitch takes a strike looking high and away. 1-1 pitch, low and away and into the dirt. Changeup missing. And K is, really mixing up his pitches, and maybe that's the problem. Sweeper, cutter, changeup. Doesn't really have a whole lot of stability in this start. I mean, he's only down 1-0, but it's been all over the place. 2-1 pitch to Wisdom. And Wisdom pops up, and this should be an easy 1-2-3 inning for Chicago. And Chase Mydroth makes the catch, and that is out number 3. Bryce Miller still with a no-hitter. And again, I don't know, obviously the, goal, was for Bryce to go, I assume, somewhere between 4 to, 6 innings, and then, bring in Castillo maybe for an inning or 2, and then go to the bullpen. But, based on how good Bryce has looked, I think I only want to see Castillo for a half inning. I don't think I want to see him any more than just that. Just let Bryce do his thing, and again, I know they originally, had this game plan that maybe one guy would go 3 innings, another guy would go 3 innings, and then we go that way. But, if you got a no-hitter and we're going to the 4th inning, you got to keep, Bryce going, especially, he's going to be a guy that will really need this season with Castillo. He's already kind of shit the bed, and, he's getting a little bit older, and, we already know what we are going to get with him. At least Logan has a chance to turn his season around, but with Castillo, I don't know, not so much. Let's go to the top of the 4th inning and see who's up next here for our ace, Bryce Miller. Next up for the White Sox, 0-for-1 left fielder, leadoff hitter Sam Antonacci. Batting second, 0-for-1 with a K, first baseman Munetaka Murakami. And batting third, 0-for-1 with a K, third baseman Miguel Vargas. And initially, if they were planning on having Castillo pitch 3-4 innings, they got to fucking scratch that, especially with Miller with a no-hitter right now. If you want him to pitch a half inning, maybe 2 at the most, fine, but I don't want to lose this game because of Luis Castillo. And I know you guys don't want that either. We're at 24,073 subs, 27 more to get to 24,100. We're still looking for our first dono on our dono train. And let's see where we're at on the likes, how close we are to 100. We got 213 in the room. And we're at 83. We're almost there. We're at 83 likes, 17 more to 100. Yeah, I looked up his numbers, and I do remember him on the Chicago Cubs a few years back. First pitch from Miller to Antonacci, low and away with the knuckle curve, 81 miles an hour there by Bryce Miller, 1-0 count. Yeah, the original photo that I had for Wisdom in the Mariner file was actually one of him in a Cubs uniform that I was gonna, use if I couldn't find anything that was worthwhile, with him on the Tacoma Rainiers or obviously here with the Mariners. And that introductory kind of photo, promo photo. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking high and away. Nice slider there by Miller. 1 ball and 1 strike to Sam Antonacci. 1-1 pitch to Antonacci. Little dribbler past Miller. Colt Emerson is there, as reliable as they come. Throw to first. And that is 1 away. And honestly, I don't have to worry about no bullshit sidearm throw by J.P. Crawford. He might have been able to do that earlier in his career, and be, pretty accurate with it. But his sidearm throw is absolutely fucking terrible this year. There's only been 2 players that have had a number of fuck-ups, defensively. And normally they're good defenders, J.P. Crawford and Julio Rodriguez. But J.P.'s had a lot of throws that Naylor has bailed him out and a few errors. And then we know that Julio has overran, 4 or 5 baseballs earlier in the season that turned into extended, base hits that went from singles to doubles, doubles to triples, and turned into RBIs, unfortunately. But it seems like Julio has cleaned up some of those mistakes, but JP, not so much. And honestly, Colt is a better defender and a better hitter. So it just kind of makes sense to, no disrespect to JP Crawford, but, it doesn't really make any sense to have JP play shortstop. I know they want to do him a solid because this might be his last year on the team. But I mean, at this point, we don't really have the luxury. We need to have our best players playing. And if we have Colt Emerson on the squad, it's, probably smart to have him play shortstop. But we'll see what the Mariners decide to do. 1-1 pitch. Low and at the knees as it bounces off the chest protector of Garver and goes back to the tire rack sign. 2 balls and 1 strike to Munetaka Murakami. Two-one pitch to Murakami. High and inside. Count now is 3 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and 1 out. Top of the 4th inning, 1-0 Seattle. 4-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour there by Miller. 3-1 pitch, big swing and a miss. And the crazy thing about Miller, when he's missing, he's only missing by an inch, a half inch. A lot of the balls are very close, to the strike zone. So it's not like he is losing any kind of control. His high-end velocity looks absolutely fantastic, and he's hitting numbers that he hasn't even hit in his career before. Anytime you can hit 98, 99, that's fucking solid. 3-2 pitch turns into a walk to Murakami, but that's better than a home run. And it still puts us in a position potentially for a double play, so we'll take that. All right, Murakami goes to first with a rare walk by Miller. Let's hope that he doesn't come home. Next up is Miguel Vargas. First pitch to Vargas, and he pops it up. And yes, nice job there by Garver, getting it right at the netting. And again, anytime you can get a cheap out on someone swinging at the first pitch and it ends up going into foul territory, but it stays in foul territory, is even if it's right there on the netting. Great job here by Garver, with the good patience and the good defense to get that cheap out 2 away. Because I was about to say, hey, we might be able to get a double play here, but nice job by Garv. Next up is Colson Montgomery. See if we can get Montgomery out and see if we can extend our lead in the bottom of the 4th here momentarily. Check swing there by Montgomery, and it dribbles towards third base and foul. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Bryce Miller on the mound looking fucking amazing. And Colson Montgomery in the box. And again, it's about time that we actually had something good go our way. We've had a lot of injuries and poor play. JP and Julio not getting the job done. On defense from time to time. Injuries to Cal and Brendan Donovan. And most teams, if they had 2 of their top 5 guys out, would be fucking terrible. So again, we're just trying to stay afloat. No Gabe Spire, no Matt Brash. 2 of our top 3 guys in the pen. Mooney hasn't been good. Castillo's been terrible. Gilbert's been terrible. And again, we're still finding a way, to win games, even though things have been a little shaky at times. Julio gets Emerson out of the way at the last minute, makes the big catch, and that is out number 3. And with all the injuries and the poor play, they still have us as the top 3 team in the American League. Even with an under 500 record with 23 and 26, they still think that the Mariners are going to be right there with the Yankees and the Rays. And I agree, and again, the Guardians and the A's will be there with the Mariners as well. We'll start to stack more wins, and, eventually there'll be more than just a couple teams with an above 500 record. Again, and it's not just us that's been going through a lot of injuries. I mean, look at the Blue Jays after making the World Series last year and how terrible they've been, So again, a lot of expectations for Blue Jay fans and Mariner fans, and at least we're not them. It could be much worse than where we're at, even though, a lot of us are a little disappointed with the win-loss record. But overall, there's a reason why we're in the position that we are, and we can get better, and we will. All right, let's go to the bottom of the 4th inning and see who's up next here for the Mariners. Trident's up. Next up for the Mariners, 0 for 0 with a base on ball, right fielder Connor Joe. Batting second, 0 for 1 with a K, catcher Mitch Garver. Let's go, Mitch. And batting third, 0 for 0 with a walk in his first at-bat, second baseman Cole Clutch Young. And then if we can get to him, it'll be in the 9-hole shortstop Colt Emerson. He can do it all. He can play the defense, and he can play the offense. $27 subs away from 24,100. Going to the bottom of the 4th inning, 1-0 Mariners. And we're at 93 likes, 7 more to 100. Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you actually follow, Cade Anderson and Ryan Sloan, like I do, I follow everybody, single A, high A, double A, triple A. If anything has to do with the Mariners, I'm all over it. And again, Cade has been killing it. Sloan has, had his moments, but not as good as, Cade at this point. And again, Cade will be on the Tacoma Rainiers before you know it. And then at some point, they'll probably, line drive there by Connor Joe, and caught, and that is 1 away. And again, they may start Cade in the pen, even though they want him to be a starter, and I kind of feel that at some point, whether it be, next year or, after Castillo is off the team and whatnot, but they're going to try to, put Cade at the 5, like they did with Brian Wu when they first brought him up. And then eventually Cade will, go from the 5 to the 4 and maybe, all the way up to like the 3, just like Wu. So it's just, you got to give him some time, but I can't wait to be able to get a lefty in the starting lineup. Garver pops up in the left field, and that is 2 away. But again, at some point, we're going to have, 6 pitchers, not including, Castillo, and, 7 if you count Sloan, and again, even if we have to put Sloan and Cade in the pen to bolster it, that could really be huge for us, considering a lot of the kind of suspect guys that we do have in the pen. So I'm very excited about the youth and the farm of the team. And you got guys, like Lazaro Montez and a few others, Michael Arroyo. So, it's an exciting time. We finally got Cole Young and Colt Emerson up. But again, I am super excited for Cade Anderson. And I think that, honestly, if you brought up Cade now, I think he would be better than Castillo and maybe better than Gilbert. And, I think that he would be, playing on the same level as some of the other guys on the team. Little dribbler up the middle there by Cole Young on the 0-1 count. And that is 3 up and 3 down there for the White Sox. And again, we know, Cade obviously won a natty at LSU, and so they're just trying to, kind of bring him up slowly. but with some of the issues in the bullpen, we could definitely use a player to his caliber, help us win. I mean, I'd rather have Cade Anderson in the pen than Luis Castillo, and I know you would as well. All right, let's go to the top of the fifth inning. 1-0 Seattle. And it's crazy. We only have one hit. But again, Bryce Miller with a no-hitter. And we got to keep Bryce out there and maybe even scrap the plans of even playing Castillo in this game at all. Unless they just want him to play a half inning to make him happy, based off his contract and whatnot. But, again, we just got to keep going with Bryce Miller. Next up for the White Sox, 0-for-1 with a K, second baseman Chase Mydroth. Batting second in the 6th hole, DHing 0-for-1, Andrew Benintendi. And batting third in the 7th hole, right fielder Jared Kelenic. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. But Cade has already been one of the most dominant pitchers in the entire farm system, single A, high A, double A, triple A. He's been, a top 5 pitcher in any level. And so, it's just a matter of time when we get him to, triple A, and then it'll be an exciting day, when he ends up being on the roster. And then at that point, when Cade is ready, then we're just going to have a logjam because, again, we're going to have George Kirby, we're going to have Brian Wu, you're going to have Emerson Hancock, right? You're going to have Bryce Miller, Logan Gilbert, and then Cade Anderson. So, again, I guess a good problem to have when you have so many good, pitchers. And at that point, Logan Gilbert might be the worst one out of them all. And that's crazy to say, considering he was an all-star just a few years ago. Top of the 5th inning, 1-0 Seattle. Miller on the mound, Chase Mydroth in the box. First pitch, high and away. Four-seam fastball missing there. 96 miles an hour by Bryce Miller. 1-0 count. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. One-0 pitch. High and away, but getting the corner for the strike. 94 mile an hour four-seam fastball. 1 ball and 1 strike to Chase Mydroth. And Cade has got a chance, to be just as big and popular, as like a Brian Wu, Colt Emerson, Cole Young, based on who they are and the potential that they have. Hard hit ball all the way to center field. Julio is there, and that is 1 away. Nice job there by the no-fly zone and Julio Rodriguez. Next up for the White Sox, the former Red Sox, Andrew Benintendi. First pitch to Benintendi, check swing. Did he go? No, he did not. Sweeper missing. Low and at the knees, 1-0 count. And I wish Gilbert was better this year, but at least Hancock took that spot. So, Hancock was better than expected, Gilbert worse. And then I don't think any of us expected Castillo to be, dog shit terrible. We thought maybe 500, right? 2-2 or something like that. ERA of like maybe 5, something like that, or 4.50 or something, or low 4s, but you just never know when Father Time is going to come a-calling. Father Time is undefeated. 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Andrew Benintendi. Smoke him, Bryce. And again, Cade definitely lucked out. If you're a pitcher and you're going to be going to any team in baseball, going to the Mariners is going to be one of the top spots to develop with all the talent that we have, as well as the coaches. 1-2 pitch, popped up by Benintendi. Julio is there, and that is 2 away. Good defense there by our boy, J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez, staying busy on defense in this inning. 2 up and 2 down by Mydroth and Benintendi, both flying out to Julio. Next up, in the 7th hole, right fielder, the former Seattle Mariner, Jared Kelenic. And even though it didn't work out for Kelenic on the Mariners and the Braves, I'm happy that, he's playing, on the White Sox. I don't know how long he'll be playing, if he'll end up getting sent down to AAA again. But, I don't have any, bad will towards him. Baseball is hard. He definitely was a highly touted prospect, with Julio. And obviously we know how that went. Obviously one guy turned into, an all-star, and the other guy, almost got to the point where maybe he thought about quitting baseball, or, thinking maybe I'm never going to be able to make it back to the majors. And so, good for him, to be able to get to a team that's now relevant in the White Sox, and hopefully he'll stay on the roster for the rest of the year, but we'll see. 0-1 pitch, takes a strike looking down the middle. No balls and 2 strikes to Jared Kelenic. 0-2 pitch from Miller to Kelenic. Big swing and a miss, and Miller is on a heater. It's Miller time, baby. And the way that Bryce has looked, in his first 2 starts, it's like when Hancock is electric. It's just like when Kirby and Wu are electric. Miller is on that same kind of level, and that's exciting to see. Now, if we could just get Gilbert and Castillo caught up to the other 4, then we would be in business. But again, I like what I'm seeing here out of Bryce Miller. Now we just need the offense to do their part. It just seems like every time we end up having this electric performance, out of a pitcher, Kirby, Wu, Hancock with 14 Ks, Gilbert with 9, Miller with a no-hitter, and we don't have any fucking run support. I mean, at least we have the 1-0 lead, so I can't complain. But hopefully we can get to 5 before this one is over. Let's go to the bottom of the 5th and see who's up next year for the Mariners. Next up for the Mariners, in the 9-hole, shortstop Colt Emerson. Batting second, 0 for 2 with a K, DHing Rob Refsnyder. Should have just started Luke Raley. And batting third, 1 for 2 with a run, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. And I get it, if Dan Wilson wants, Dominic Canzone to split, that's fine. But you should never be splitting Luke Raley when he's normally number 1 in home runs, number 1 in ribbies. He's one of the best hitters on the team. It just doesn't make any sense, to not have Luke Raley play. Even if he does struggle, against left-handed pitching, I think all of us would rather see Luke play, than Rob Snyder or Joe or whoever else they have to try to take his spot. Giving him only 2 at-bats or none compared to having 4 or 5. I mean, if you want to be able to turn this ship around, you got to have your best players playing every day. And again, if you want Canzone to split for the rest of the year, that's on you, Dan. I wouldn't, but again, if you're trying to make the other guys happy, so be it, but Luke Raley should be playing every day, even if he does struggle, against left-handed pitching. Let's go to the bottom of the 5th, 1-0 Seattle. Gained another sub since the last commercial break. Appreciate you. 26 subs to go to 24,100. Oh, 1 pitch to Emerson. And Emerson gets plunked there on the arm/shoulder, and Emerson to first. Anthony K. been really wild on the mound so far. Next up is Rob Refsnyder. First pitch, high and away, 1-0 count. Cutter missing there by K, 90 miles an hour. Throw to first, and Emerson is back safe. Bottom of the 5th inning, runner at first, Colt Emerson, who just got beamed in the arm moments ago with no outs, 1-0 Mariners. Wisdom grounded out to a fielder's choice. Julio scoring from third in the bottom of the 1st inning, but we haven't been able to get anything since. And Bryce Miller's got a no-hitter. So one of those games, but hopefully we'll be able to get the offense going at some point, with K. And if not, then after K leaves and we just need to go off. Big swing and a miss there by Refsnyder. 1-1 pitch, fouled off into right field, out of play. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Rob Refsnyder. 1-2 pitch, and down goes Refsnyder. Just feel like, with Rob, it's just, wasted at bat. I mean, I get it. You want certain guys to play, and, to have that, depth and whatnot, with Refsnyder and Joe, but it just seems like every time they play, it's, more of a liability than an asset. Every once in a while, they'll come up with something big, but not as often as you would like. Next up is Julio Rodriguez with a single in the first and a run. First pitch by Julio, pops it up. Should be a routine play here in center field. And Peters is there, and that is 2 away. Work the count a little bit. Next up is Randy Arozarena. And they don't got Castillo warming up in the pen because Bryce has got the no-hitter, and obviously that is the right move at this time. All right, come on, Randy. We could definitely use like an unexpected home run just to kind of open the game up a little bit more. It's like we have these amazing pitching performances, but then the, bats like die for whatever reason. Little dribbler in front of the pitcher. K flipped to first, and that is out number 3. Colt Emerson is stranded. And now let's go to the top of the 6th inning with Bryce Miller with the no-hitter. And again, if Bryce can continue, with this no-hitter, he's only at 63 pitches. I mean, hell, let him pitch all the way to the 8th inning if possible. If he still has a no-hitter at that point, or even if it's like a one-hitter, just let him go and just scrap this Castillo, dual split, kind of idea that they originally had. Because I assume that they didn't anticipate Miller having a no-hitter right now. So at this point, I mean, I don't even think we need Castillo to fuck the game up, especially when it's only 1-0, right? We don't want Miller to do great, and then all of a sudden you bring in Castillo, and then we lose the game 2-1. I mean, we would just be livid. So let's go to the top of the 6th and see who's up next here for the White Sox. Next up for the White Sox, 0 for 1 in the 8-hole center fielder, Tristan Peters. Batting second, 0 for 1 in the 9-hole catcher, Edgar Caro. And batting third, 0 for 2 left fielder, leadoff hitter, Sam Antonacci. Trident's up. Let's go, Ems. $26 subs away from 24,100. We got 103 likes with 230 in the room. So 97 more to get to 200, and we're still looking for our first dono on our dono train. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Top of the 6th inning, 1-0 Mariners. And a line drive towards right field, and Miller gives up the first hit of the game. Tristan Peters trying to get 2. Wild throw there by Connor Joe. Jesus Christ. It goes all the way to Randy in left field. Come on, Connor. If you're going to be playing in right field, over Luke Raley, or anybody else, Dominic Canzone, don't make a throw like that. My God. And that's unfortunate that Bryce Miller's no-hitter just ended, but, still a fantastic game. We just need the bats to start coming alive. And they came alive in that first inning with the meltdown by Kay, but he has settled down and settled in. And then you get Connor Joe throwing it like a football as far as he can. He doesn't even get close to Colt Emerson. It goes way over his head all the way to Randy. Luckily, he wasn't in scoring position because that would have been a huge error. Now we got a runner at second with no outs. First pitch there to Edgar Caro. Big swing and a miss, 0-1 count. Trident's up. Let's go, Ems. Oh, 1 pitch. Ooh, high and inside. Almost hits Caro there. 1 ball, 1 strike from Miller to Caro. And now we got Ferrer and Castillo warming up. he gave up one hit, and now everyone's freaking out, and now they're warming up. But I guess that's how it goes. They think he's going to have a meltdown just because he gave up the first hit of the game in the 6th inning. 1-1 pitch, fouled off, out of play. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Miller to Caro. Pitch count is low. And again, I would rather see Miller continue to keep going rather than bring Castillo in. 1-2 pitch, high and inside. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Miller to Caro. Come on, Bryce, settle down and settle in. 2-2 pitch to Caro. Big swing and a miss. And after giving up the first hit of the game that should have just been a single, but turned into a double based off the bad throw by Connor Joe in right field, he ends up getting a strikeout on the next batter. That's my guy, Bryce Miller. It's Miller time. Nice job, Bryce. And that is 1 away. Still a very good chance that they don't even score here in this inning. Just got to settle down and settle in. Next up, leadoff hitter, left fielder, Sam Antonacci. All right, Garver having a little mound visit here with Bryce, making sure they're on the same page. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Top of the 6th inning, runner at second with 1 out, 1-0 Mariner lead. Both teams only with 1 hit so far. It's been a pitcher's duel. Miller had a no-hitter until just moments ago, and Wisdom grounded out to a fielder's choice with bases loaded. Julio scored from third in the bottom of the 1st inning to give us the 1-0 lead. Miller on the mound, Antonacci in the box. First pitch, low and at the knees, 1-0 count. Come on, Bryce. One-0 pitch. Popped up into right field, fading foul. 1 ball and 1 strike with a runner at second and 1 out. Top of the 6th inning, 1-0 Mariners. And again, hopefully we can get to 5 before this one is over. And you have to assume, let's look at his numbers. Where's he at? K is at 86 pitches, so he's getting close. Miller's only at 71, so 1-1 pitch, popped up. Shallow left field. Randy is there, back to the warning track, and throws a actual decent throw to third, knowing the runner is there at second. Not a little weak-ass lob that I'm used to, and keeps the runner at second base. 2 away. Good defense there by Randy and a good throw into the infield. You know, just little minor tweaks of hustle, you know, in ground balls and hustle, you know, on the bags, and obviously a strong throw once you pick up the ball into the infield. I mean, we don't ask for a whole lot. I mean, Randy's a fucking great hitter. He's one of the, you know, most underrated hitters in baseball. You know, he's very consistent, but, you know, to be a complete player, you know, more like a Julio or, you know, like a Cole Young, Colt Emerson type, you know, and obviously we know Cole and Colt are young, but I think they will prove that, you know, they can get the job done. And it looks like Miller is done. They're going to take him out. I don't know if I agree with this. And they're going to bring in Jose Ferrer. And hopefully this is not the wrong move, because if Ferrer gives up a home run, I am going to lose it. You know, and again, I guess better than bringing in Luis Castillo. But again, he had a one hitter, and you're going to pull him now. And it's not like he's at 100 pitches. You know, he's at 72, you know. So let's pray, you know, because again, you take him out this early instead of having him pitch all of this inning. Then there's a chance that we may bring in Castillo, you know, and we don't want him to shit the bed, you know, in a couple batters. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're down 2-1 or 3-1 and we can't come back. So I don't know if I agree with this. You know, I really don't. You know, the guy gives up one fucking hit. You have a bad throw by Joe. The guy goes from a single to a double, ends up striking out the next guy, popping up the next. Why are we taking him out? But let's see if this move works. Jose Ferrer is coming in. And I get it. You know, it's Munetaka Murakami, you know, 0 for 1 with a base on ball and a K. You know, one of the most, prolific home run hitters in 2026. You know, obviously, with Aaron Judge and Kyle Schwarber on the Phillies, you know, those are the three guys that have been mashing the most. But I think I trust Bryce Miller more in this situation than I do Jose Ferrer. You know, and again, they assume a lefty on lefty is going to be a better matchup, but I don't know. I think I would have kept Bryce in the game. I think he earned the right to, keep going. Let's hope that we get the good Ferrer, not the bad, because if Ferrer fucks up right here, we may not come back. You know, depending on what they do after Ferrer. You know, this game could end up be 2-1, 3-1, 4-1 L. You know, if we don't get the run support going, but I don't like this decision here by Dan Wilson. Because again, it's not like Jose has been electric. He's not Matt Brash, you know. He sometimes is good, but sometimes is a liability. And he's blown games for us too, right? So, first pitch is low and away, 1-0 count. Pitch in there for a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike from Ferrer to Murakami. On the flip side, at least it was, at least they didn't bring in Castillo. Then that would have been like, what are we doing? 1-1 pitch. And obviously the reason that they did it, because they did lefty on lefty, they think Ferrer's got a better chance on getting Murakami out rather than Bryce as a righty. But I think Bryce is a better pitcher than Ferrer, and even though it's a righty on lefty matchup that might favor Murakami, I still believe Bryce could get him out. With Ferrer, I'm kind of holding my breath. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and Jose Ferrer gets the job done, thankfully. And I guess it could have been worse. They could have brought in Castillo and kind of let the game slip away. But still, I would have loved for Bryce to continue. I mean, pitch count was low, and again, he could have definitely went longer. He had 7 Ks. He only had 72 pitches, but at least on, the flip side, you bring in a player in Ferrer that is streaky, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and he didn't blow the game, by giving up a big home run, or a big RBI, so I guess we can hang our hat on that. But again, I'm very impressed with Bryce Miller in his first 2 starts. Better than Gilbert, better than Castillo, looking like he's on that level with Hancock, and pretty soon he might be on the Woo Kirby level, believe it or not. All right, let's go to the bottom of the 6th, and can we get some fucking run support? Let's go. Enough time fucking around with this White Sox team. Let's go. Next up for the Mariners, 0 for 1 with a base on ball, first baseman Josh Naylor. Batting second, 0 for 2 with an RBI, third baseman Patrick Wisdom. And batting third, 0 for 1 with a base on ball, Connor Joe. And then we should get Ref Snyder and Joe swapped out for Canzone and Rayleigh soon. Let's see, K's at 86 pitches, so you have to assume this will be the last inning for him. $26 subs away from 24,100. Gained another sub. Appreciate you. 25 subs to go, do 24,100. Shout out to our female viewership, as well as everyone watching across the world, United States, Canada, Mexico, South America, and Asia. I appreciate you. Let's see how many likes we are to 200. We got 254 in the room. All right, we're at 114. $86 to 200, and we're still looking for our first dono on our dono train. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. First pitch into Josh Naylor in there for a strike, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, high and inside. 1 ball and 1 strike to Josh Naylor. White Sox challenge. Call is overturned. 1-1 count now goes to no balls and 2 strikes to Josh Naylor. Anthony K on the mound, Naylor in the box. And, you know, based on how wild K has been, it's really shocking that we're only up 1-0. You know, we only really had 1 inning, you know, where we had bases loaded where we could have gotten 2 or 3 runs, and we only ended up getting 1. 0-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. And down goes Naylor, and that is 1 away. You know, and again, it's like when you got a lineup with Rev Snyder and Joe and Patrick Wisdom and Mitch Garver, I don't expect any of those guys to do fucking anything. But, you know, you got Julio, you got Randy, you got Naylor, you got Cole Young and Colt Emerson. Even against, you know, tough left-handed pitching, you would assume that these guys, you know, more times than not, even if it's against a decent lefty, you got to find a way. And we'll see where it goes. Looks like they might be making a pitching change here. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. Still really don't like the idea that they pulled Bryce after a 1-hitter, but again, they originally were going to have him pitch, I think, somewhere between 4 and 6 innings, and then, you know, bring in Castillo, you know, to do a, you know, 2 or 3 innings after that. But again, you know, when you end up having a no-hitter, you know, going into the 6th inning, then obviously you have to scrap that, you know, plan and, you know, go with someone that actually is good in Miller, not like Castillo, who's been fucking terrible. And, you know, we'll see where it goes. All right, Davis is coming in. All right, Tyler Davis is getting a chance to get in here for the White Sox. All right, come on, Patrick Wisdom. You're responsible for our run. You know, and again, sometimes the you know, lower end guys are, you know, you don't expect anything, and sometimes they end up you know, being kind of an unsung hero. And let's see if Wisdom can end up doing it again here. Bottom of the 6th inning. Tyler Davis in now, the righty. So we should get Luke Raley and Dominic Canzone in now, since they're going from a lefty to a righty. And this is when we should be able to open the game up. You know, take away Joe and Rev Snyder, bring in Luke Raley and Dominic Canzone. Yes, please. First pitch into Wisdom, high and inside, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike right down the middle with the slider there by Tyler Davis. 1 ball and 1 strike to Patrick Wisdom. One pitch to Wisdom, high and away. 2 balls and 1 strike from Davis to Wisdom. And even though it's 1-0, I still think we can get 3 to 5 runs before this one is over. You know, all it takes is one pitcher to have a meltdown or 2, and we can end up getting 3, 4, 5 runs. Especially since K is out now. 2-1 pitch. Popped up and behind the plate, foul. Out of play. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Davis to Patrick Wisdom. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. Both teams with only 1 hit so far. Miller was exceptional. Barrera got the job done against Murakami, but we need that offense to get going. 2-2 pitch. Low and away with the 4-seam fastball there by Tyler Davis. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Patrick Wisdom. Even Wisdom getting on with a walk, you know, just something positive would be great. 3-2 pitch. And Wisdom pops up to deep right field and caught there at the warning track by Jared Kelenic, and that is 2 away. And next up is supposed to be Connor Joe, but they should swap that for Luke Raley or Dominic Canzone. But for whatever reason, Dan Wilson is sleeping or something and has Connor Joe out there. What are we doing? Why is Connor Joe getting another fucking at-bat when we have a righty? Wake the fuck up, Dan. There's no reason Joe should be batting right now. I mean, you already got on with a walk, right? You know, and you're 0 for 1. You had your 2 chances. You got 1 walk, so you did something productive. You had that wild fucking throw from right field. Why the hell are you still in the game? 0-1 pitch, high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Connor Joe. This should be Dominic Canzone or Luke Raley. What are we doing? 1-1 pitch. Big swing and a miss by Joe. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Davis to Joe. And these are like the little, things, about a manager. You need to be on your game. It's one thing to take risks. Obviously taking Miller out and bringing Ferrer in. That one worked, right? And 1-2 pitch, that strike 3 looking, a wasted at bat there for Connor Joe. We could have had, there's no guarantee Luke Raley, bats there, he gets a hit, or if he strikes out as well. But, I want to get as many opportunities, for Luke Raley and Dominic Canzone if they switch to a right-handed pitcher, but I guess Dan is in his own fucking world, End of the 6th inning, 1-0 Seattle. All right, let's see who's up next for the White Sox as we go to the top of the 7th. Next up for the White Sox, 0 for 2 with a K, third baseman Miguel Vargas. Batting second, 0 for 2 with a K, in the 4-hole, shortstop Colson Montgomery. And batting third, 0 for 2 with a K, in the 5-hole, second baseman Chase Mydroth. And what are they going to do pitching-wise? Are they going to keep Ferrer out there again? I mean, he only had 4 pitches. So, it would make sense to bring him back out, I guess, right? But, knowing the Mariners, who the hell knows? And no, Ferrer is done. And now they're going to bring in Luis Castillo. Great. Better not fuck this game up right here. We only have 1 hit all day, but the last thing that we need is Castillo to come in here and fuck the game up, and we lose 2-1 or worse. So taking Bryce Miller out, I don't agree with that. You brought in Ferrer, it worked. You didn't bring in Luke Raley for Connor Joe, and then instead of having Ferrer come out again with only 4 pitches, you're bringing in Castillo. You're really running, on thin ice here, with these decisions. And again, every once in a while, he'll get lucky with one of his decisions, but how many times has he fucked up, by leaving a guy in too long, pulling a guy too soon, bringing in the wrong guy, not substituting a guy when he needs to. I hope it works out. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. All right, Louise. And I think that in this role, he'll be better, if he only has to pitch 1 to 3 innings, but preferably just a half inning, considering how bad he's been. But we have seen him, go clean, for, 2-3 innings. But 3 innings is kind of the max for him not to give up a run. And then usually after that, it goes downhill, and he normally gives up 4 to 8 runs, or at least this year he has. But hopefully we get the good version of La Piedra here. First pitch, takes a strike looking, high and away. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Miguel Vargas. If he's going to make these questionable decisions and we still win, I'll be fine. But if we lose this game, I'm going to be, looking at all those decisions, that were made or that weren't made. 1-1 pitch, fouled off, out of play. Four-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour there by Luis Castillo. 1 ball and 2 strikes with nobody on and no outs. Top of the 7th inning, 1-0 Seattle. Now, it's one thing if we're up 5-0, then you can, play around a little bit, but when both teams are only at 1 hit apiece, you got to be a little bit more strategic. Big swing and a miss. Down goes Vargas. There we go. Nice job there by Luis Castillo. And again, him being in a lesser of a role is really going to benefit the fans and the team as well as Luis himself. Down goes Miguel, thankfully, and that is 1 away. Down goes Vargas, the former Dodger and now White Sox. Next up, Colson Montgomery. First pitch to Montgomery, fouls it towards first base, out of play. Slider, 85 miles an hour, 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch from Castillo, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 1 strike to Colson Montgomery. 1 run, 1 hit, no errors for the Mariners. No runs, 1 hit, no errors for the White Sox. And Patrick Wisdom with bases loaded, grounded out to a fielder's choice. Julio scored from third, and that's been it. Miller was great, had a no-hitter, gave up 1 hit, and then they pulled him and brought in Ferrer to face Murakami. Thankfully, Ferrer did a good job and got Murakami out, and we're still with a 1-0 lead, but for how long? 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Castillo to Montgomery. And if Castillo can take this, demotion and be motivated by it, by being in the pen, he actually could be, one of those pieces that could help us, considering we have a lot of these AAA guys, in the pen, and we're still waiting for Brash and Spire to come back. And if Castillo can be the good Castillo and help us in the pen, it could really, advance us, in the American League West if he can be consistent. 2-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. And this is the version of Castillo that we like, right? For him to be able to get in maybe just for a half inning, try to be able to get 3 strikeouts. He might not be able to do that all the time, but every once in a while he'll be able to retire the side, and nice job there. 2 up and 2 down by Luis Castillo. Down goes Vargas, down goes Montgomery. Next up is Chase Mydroth. First pitch to Mydroth in there for a strike, 0-1 count. And again, you can always tell how good a player is going to be within the first 7 pitches, especially with Castillo and Andres Munoz as a closer. Are they getting strikes? Are they ahead of the count? How wild are they? Are they in the strike zone? And so far, so good, with this version of Castillo for his first opportunity coming out of the pen. 0-1 pitch, takes a strike looking on the corner. Beautiful location there by Castillo. No balls and 2 strikes from Castillo to Mydroth. For a guy that's got an ERA above 6, he's looking pretty damn good here. Little dribbler in front of Luis, and it ends up going foul. Yeah, so they already mentioned that they were going to go with a 6-man rotation, and then they decided to go, with Miller and Castillo. And hopefully we don't ever see Castillo start and then Miller come in after. It always should be Miller first, and then have Castillo just be in this bullpen role. That's where it's going to help us win games. Because if you end up having Castillo start, good luck with that. 0-2 pitch, fouled off behind the plate, and he'll still have a chance, in the bullpen to pitch if they want to. 2 or 3 innings, so it's not like he might not be able to go 6, as a starter, but it's not like he wouldn't really survive 6 innings most of the time without giving up 4 to 8 runs. But if he goes 1 to 3 innings, he could still get that feel, that, I'm still important to this team. And then you're not necessarily giving up so many home runs and RBIs. And then you look better as a pitcher and you get your ERA down. Pitch is low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Chase Mydroth. Smoke him, Luis. 1-2 pitch. Got him! 3 up, 3 down. And again, Castillo in the pen is a good idea. Even for a guy that's got an ERA of 6 because he had so much pressure, trying to be able to pitch, on the same level as Gilbert and Hancock, as well as Kirby and Wu and now Miller. And now if you can just settle into the role that, you're getting older, your ERA is above 6, you can't pitch 6 innings anymore, but we can still believe in you pitching maybe 1 to 3. And when you can end up striking out the side, and do what you just did right there, it gives confidence to us fans that you're not completely washed. You know, you just can't go the distance anymore, but you can still go 1 to 3 innings and do a good job without, getting all the fan base pissed off. And nice job there by Luis Castillo. That's, the best case scenario, bringing that electricity, retiring 3 batters in a row. Great job, Luis Castillo. And I don't even know if we've said that all year, but he earns it and he deserves it. Nice job, Luis. Nice job by La Piedra. All right, let's go to the bottom of the 7th inning and see if we can get some run support and feed off that momentum from Luis Castillo. Next up for the Mariners, 0 for 2 with a K, catcher Mitch Garver. Batting second, 0 for 1 with a base on ball, second baseman Cole Young. And batting third, 0 for 1 with a K, shortstop Colt Emerson, who in his first hit of his career last night hit a 3-run jack to help us get that big victory over the White Sox yesterday, 6-1. We only won 1 game out of 3 in Chicago a few weeks ago. We should have won 2 out of 3, but the bullpen shit the bed, and we only won 1. So we want to make sure the bullpen doesn't fuck up here again. Try to dance up. Let's go, M's. All right, 25 subs to go to 24,100. We're still looking for our first dono on our dono train to help out with the Paisley Pup Vet Fund. Anything that can be done on the Cash App, the Venmo, or the Super Chat would be greatly appreciated. And we're at 132 likes. $68 to $200. And considering we have so many, AAA guys, filling in for Brash and Spire, this could be a real, beautiful spot for Castillo, even though it probably feels like a demotion to him. But, it's not like he had a good record or a good ERA this year. He knows he's been bad, but, you give less responsibility, then he can do things like that. 2-0 pitch from Davis to Garver, high and inside. 3 balls and no strikes to Mitch Garver. Tyler Davis on the mound, the righty. Mitch Garver in the box for the Mariners. Come on, Mitch. Take the walk if it's there. 3-0 pitch. Takes a strike right down the middle. 4-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour by Tyler Davis. 3 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and no outs. Bottom of the 7th inning, Mariners hanging on barely with a 1-0 lead. 3-1 pitch. Takes another strike on the corner. And Garver is challenging, but I don't think you're going to win this. Nope. Bad challenge by Garver there. Try to sub. Let's go, M's. No, Garver does not hit home runs often. He only has 1, and he'll probably finish with less than 10 by the end of the year. Or, close to 10. Somewhere in that 8 to 10 range, you would assume, but he's only at 1 so far. Unless he ends up hitting like more than 1 in a game, and then he might be able to get in that 12 to 15 range, but 3-2 pitch, and that is a walk. There we go. We'll take that. Garver with the patience ends up forcing the walk there on Tyler Davis. And next up, Cole Young on deck, Colt Emerson. And I've been dreaming, of these 2 players playing on the Mariners, ever since we drafted them. And again, very exciting that it's finally happening. First pitch fouled off behind the plate, 0-1 count. And again, think about all the players that we still have injured. No Cal Raleigh, no Brandon Donovan, no Victor Robles, no Matt Brash, no Gabe Spire. A lot of guys are out right now. 0-1 pitch, high and inside. 1 ball and 1 strike to Cole Young. One pitch, high and away. Paints the corner beautifully there by Tyler Davis. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Cole Clutch Young. Come on, Cole. 1-2 pitch. And a little dribbler towards first base and foul. But I would love for us to get back to, bunting, small ball, and, doing the things, that not every team does. Not necessarily with Cole Young in this particular at-bat, but just in general, so. Yeah, homered to right field, not left. And he, didn't really get a whole lot of it. It was almost very identical to Ken Griffey Jr.'s first home run, just barely, went out, but, had enough follow through with the swing to, get it into the front row. And ended up meeting the fan after the game, gave him a different baseball, autographed it, and a bat as well. 1-2 pitch, popped up and out of play. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Davis to Young. But I'm just glad that he was able to get the ball back, and, I assume that it'll go to his mom and his dad. They're very, very close, unless he ends up keeping it, on his mantle at his house or on his desk. But I assume his parents will probably have that ball. 1-2 pitch. Big swing and a miss there by Young. Nasty pitch there by Tyler Davis with the splitter, and that is 1 away. Next up for the Mariners in the 9-hole, shortstop, Colt Emerson. Let's go, Colt. First pitch to Emerson, down the middle for a strike. 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch in there for another strike. Four-seam fastball there by Tyler Davis. No balls and 2 strikes to Colt Emerson. I still think we have a very good chance of getting to 3 to 5 runs. All we need is just a meltdown by one pitcher and we can get there. But I'm not sure if it's going to be Davis that has this meltdown. 0-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and that is 2 away. And also we got to make the swap for Luke Raley and Dominic Canzone. And giving Connor Joe that last at-bat was a waste. So we'll see what happens here. And this hopefully will be Luke Raley or Dominic Canzone here next. Why are they letting Ref Snyder hit and Joe hit? They've already gotten their chances. What are we doing? What is Dan Wilson thinking? Why is Ref Snyder still in the game when there's a right-handed pitcher? If he's going to be, so disciplined with these splits, you have lefties go against righties. Okay, it makes sense then if you want Joe and Ref Snyder to play, even though they're kind of dog shit, right? And then when they go to a righty, you're supposed to make the switch to our good players. Dominic Canzone, hello? Luke Raley, hello? And instead, he just ignores it in this game for whatever reason and lets Joe and Ref Snyder continue. What the fuck are we doing? Are we trying to lose this game? Golly. Fucking Dan Wilson. 1-0 pitch. Big swing and a miss. 1 ball and 1 strike from Tyler Davis to Rob Refsnyder. I mean, shitty players shouldn't get extended chances, to be able to play. We want the better players, to get the extra chances. Takes a strike looking high and away from Davis. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Rob Refsnyder. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. What a wasted fucking opportunity there. And again, there's no guarantee if Dominic Canzone comes in for Connor Joe last inning and Rob Refsnyder gets substituted for Luke Raley. There's no guarantee, that those guys get hits. They could strike out just like Refsnyder and Joe did, but I want to see it. I want to be able to see it for myself. Get the better player in the game, but I don't know. Dan's in his own world, I guess. All right, end of the 7th inning, 1-0 Mariners, and I hope that we win this game, because if we lose this game, I'm going to be livid. Let's go to the top of the 8th. Let's win it for Riz. Let's see who's up next here for the White Sox. Next up in the 6th hole, 0 for 2, DHing Andrew Benintendi. Batting second, 0 for 2 with 2 Ks, the former Mariner right fielder Jared Kelenic. And batting third, 1 for 2 in the 8th hole, center fielder Tristan Peters. Trident's up. Let's go Elms. And do they let Castillo come back out after getting 3 Ks and retiring the side? His ERA is 6.20, but if he stays in the pen, it'll go down from 6.20 to 6 to 5, and maybe in that 4 range. As the season progresses. But we will see. Knowing Dan Wilson, we don't know what the hell he'll do. 25 subs away from 24,100. Shout out to our female viewership, as well as people watching in the United States, Canada, Mexico, South America, Asia, and beyond. We're at 137 likes. $63 more to get to 200, and we are still looking for our first dono on our dono train. 2 innings to go, and I have faith out of the 276 people that we'll get at least a few people to show some love and support for the channel. Maybe even more than that. One dono train leads to another. All right, Castillo is still out there. First pitch, high and away from Luis Castillo, who ended up striking out the side. The best outcome you possibly could have had for a guy that's got an ERA of 6.20. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Andrew Benintendi. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Little dribbler to Naylor, back to Castillo, toe tap on the bag, and that is 1 away. Next up is Jared Kelenic. First pitch to Kelenic, high and away, change up 86 miles an hour, 1-0 count. Top of the 8th inning, nobody on with 1 out. Mariners hanging on to a 1-run lead. Both teams with only 1 hit so far, which is crazy. 1-0 pitch, Kelenic fouls out behind the plate and out of play. 1 ball and 1 strike from Castillo to Kelenic. One pitch to Jared, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 1 strike from Castillo to Kelenic. Change up 88 miles an hour, missing by maybe about a half inch from the strike zone. But so far, Castillo's looked pretty good in his first attempt in the pen. 2-1 pitch, high and inside. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Castillo to Kelenic. And it's not like we have Cal Raleigh available catching. So again, it's going to be a lot of Mitch Garver and a lot of Johnny Pereda, but they're trying to do their best. 2-2 pitch from Castillo, and Kelenic crushes that one into left field and out of play. 4-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour there by Castillo. 2 balls and 2 strikes with nobody on and 1 out. Top of the 8th inning, 1-0 Mariners. Two-two pitch. Popped up and out of play. 4-seam fastball, 95 miles an hour there by Luis Castillo. I like Luis in the bullpen. It's something that they should have done weeks ago. He's proven that he can, be clean for about 3 innings before he has a meltdown. So 2-2 pitch. Little dribbler towards first base and foul. And obviously not having to prepare to pitch, the whole game and only having to pitch a couple innings, the mindset should be a little bit more loose, for Castillo, not as much pressure on him. And I think he'll play better because of it as well. 2-2 pitch. Low and at the knees. Slider 85 miles an hour missing. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Jared Kelenic. Three-two pitch. Little dribbler goes off his glove, and Cole Young cannot get to it. Louise probably should have just let the glove, go down, and if Cole had a clean play, that would have been an easy out. But Louise tried to, make the play, and just instincts. It's baseball, and it ends up taking a weird, trajectory angle, and Cole cannot get to it in time. Got a glove on it, but wasn't able to get the ball. Single there by Jared Kelenic. And a pinch runner for Jared. Acuna is coming to run for Kelenic. Next up in the 8-hole is Tristan Peters. Maybe we can get a double play up the middle to Colt Emerson to Naylor, and we can get out of this inning. Unless he ends up getting back-to-back Ks here, but hopefully it's not the start of a meltdown. Throw to first. And Acuna is safe. Castillo on the mound. Tristan Peters in the box. First pitch is high and away. 1-0 count. Four-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour there by Luis Castillo. Top of the 8th inning, 1-0 Seattle. With a runner at first, Acuna, pinch running for Jared Kelenic, and 1 out. 1-0 pitch. Big swing and a miss there by Peters. 1 ball and 1 strike to Tristan Peters. Come on, Castillo, lock in. One pitch, high and away. Changeup missing by quite a bit. 86 miles an hour, high and away. 2 balls and 1 strike with a runner at first and 1 out. Top of the 8th inning, 1-0 Seattle. Come on, Castillo. 2-1 pitch. Popped up behind the plate and out of play towards the T-Mobile bricks. 2 balls and 2 strikes with a runner at first and 1 out. Top of the 8th inning, 1-0 Seattle. Two-two pitch, high and away. Count now is full. Come on, Louise. Throw to first. Oh, that's close. That's close. And let's see if they challenge or not. Can't really tell if the hand got in there in time based off the angle. I mean, they're behind Josh Naylor and the first base coach there, Legger. Come on, Mariner Moose, help us out here. I mean, we need the other angle if they have one. Let's see here. Ooh. His hand is kind of being partially blocked. And let's take a look at this third angle. I mean, initially when you saw the play, he looked out, but then the ump at first is right there looking at the play and called him safe. So I don't know if we're going to get this call to go our way. Definitely a bang play. It looked like it was, pretty close, but you really can't definitively see the fingers, hit the bag. And he's got obviously the glove on, the oven mitt on the other hand, and he didn't use that hand to obviously get back to first base. It was the, right hand there, as you see Acuna and Naylor waiting for the replay results. Play is still under review. Getting this out at first could definitely give us a little momentum here. And then you're having Cole Young, Colt Emerson, and Josh Naylor huddling up, having a little discussion here. Long review here by the umps, as well as the people in the the booth that are looking at the footage on all the angles here. But they keep showing this review where, the cameraman is behind the first base coach, the ump, and both players. I mean, you can't see it from that fucking angle. You need like a side angle, to be able to see the hand and the tag, and it's kind of obstructed. You can't really see it, so. Runner is safe. Top of the 8th, runner at first with 1 out. Mariners hanging on to a 1-0 lead. Castillo got 3 punch outs in the 7th, but struggling a little bit here. And now we got a full count. 3 balls, 2 strikes with a runner at first and 1 out. I mean, getting a double play to Colt Emerson would be great right here if possible. Runner goes, and that ends up being a walk. Now we got runners at first and second with 1 out. And this is what I was kind of worried about. If you're going to bring Castillo into the game, and, just like any other player in the pen, they could have a meltdown and fuck the game up. I mean, we saw Bizzardo, give up a home run or an RBI in his last, 3 outings since Brash and Spire have been hurt. And then you got, Alex Hoppe and Cooper Criswell, a lot of these other guys that really aren't that trustworthy, game in and game out. And now we have to hope that Luis doesn't blow the game here. Top of the 8th. I mean, obviously we haven't done our part offensively, only getting, 1 hit. That's unacceptable. But with a 1-0 lead, we have to pray that we can find a way to win this game, whether it be 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, or whatever it may be. Next up is Edgar Caro. First pitch to Caro, fouls it back to the T-Mobile Bricks, 0-1 count. You just said Caro leads the team in double plays. Well, hopefully he gets one here. Come on, Luis. Oh, 1 pitch. Popped up and out of play. No balls and 2 strikes from Castillo to Caro. Top of the 8th inning. Runners at first and second with 1 out. Mariners hanging on by a thread with a 1-0 lead. We've had, so many great pitching performances this year with no hitting, to support it. Emerson Hancock, 14 Ks, lost that game. Logan Gilbert with 9, didn't win that one either. Popped up. And Randy is there, and that is 2 away. There we go. We needed that. All right, we're 1 out away. And I assume this will be the last inning for Castillo. They're not going to have him go 3. Next up for Luis Castillo, leadoff hitter, left fielder, 0 for 3, Sam Antonacci. Come on, Luis, dig deep here. You've blown a lot of games for us this year. Find a way to have a good performance in the pen to help us win. Find a way to get the job done. First pitch to Antonacci, low and at the knees, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch to Antonacci. Little dribbler towards first and foul. 1 ball and 1 strike with runners at first and second and 2 outs. Top of the 8th inning, 1-0 Seattle. 2 hits total for the White Sox today, only 1 for the Mariners. We had bases loaded and Wisdom hit into a fielder's choice, and Julio scored from third, and that's it. 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, nasty four-seam fastball there by Luis Castillo, high and away, beautiful. 1 ball and 2 strikes with runners at first and second and 2 outs. We are 1 strike away from getting out of this jam. Come on, Luis. 1-2 pitch. Fouls it off himself. Change up 89 miles an hour there by Castillo. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Sam Antonacci. Come on, Luis. You've been terrible as a starter this year, but in the pen, you can find your calling, and sometimes you have to pivot and make the most of a situation. 1-2 pitch from Castillo. Little dribbler up the middle. Get it, Colt. Throw to first. Got him. Good play there. A little nerve-wracking, right? But it's nice to be able to have guys that you can trust. Nice job by Colt Emerson getting the good job done there with that dribbler up the middle. I mean, if it's J.P. Crawford playing today, who knows if that out gets made, with his sidearm throws. I always get nervous with those, but Colt doing the job. Great job, my guy. All right, let's go to the bottom of the 8th, and can we get at least another run or two to have a little bit of insurance? Because hanging on to this 1-0 lead does not feel comfortable at all. Next up for the Mariners, 1 for 3 with a run. It is Julio Rodriguez. This would be a great time for a late inning home run. Let's go, J-Rod. You did it yesterday. Let's see if you can do it today. The Mariner Moose is behind you. Batting second, 0 for 2, left fielder Randy Arozarena, one of the better hitters for the Mariners this season. Very underrated. And hopefully Randy can come up in the clutch. And batting third, 0 for 2 with a base on ball and a K. First baseman, it's Nails, Josh Naylor. So, we got the 3 right guys up that you would want in this game. Julio, Randy, Josh. And hopefully we can get at least a run to get to 2 before we go to the 9th. Trident's up. Let's go Ems. And we got Emerson Hancock on the mound tomorrow, which I love. And hopefully we get run support for him as well. That game will be on tomorrow at 1:10 Pacific. 25 subs away from 24,100. We're still looking for our first dono on our dono train, and I'm still confident we'll get something before this game ends. And we're at 153 likes, 47 more to get to 200. All right, first pitch by Hudson to Julio, takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch in there for a ball to Julio. 1 ball and 1 strike to Julio Rodriguez. 1-1 pitch, a little dribbler up the middle, throw to first. And I would have liked to seen Julio hustle a little bit more there, and he might have been able to run that out, but that is 1 away. Brian Hudson on the mound, Julio Rodriguez in the box. And they don't have Mooney with his jersey. He's got the hoodie on over it, so I don't know if you're going to get him in the game or not. Down goes Julio. Next up is Randy Arozarena. First pitch there from Hudson to Randy. Big swing and a miss. Tried to jam him and done. Four-seam fastball, 91 miles an hour by Brian Hudson. No balls and one strike to Randy Rosarena. Come on, Randy. 0-1 pitch. Big swing and a miss. Four-seam fastball, 91 miles an hour there by Brian Hudson. No balls and two strikes to Randy Rosarena. I mean, hell, we might, if we're lucky enough, maybe we'll win this game 1-0, but I would love for us to, at least try to get to 2. But it's been tough sledding for both teams so far. O2 pitch to Randy. Hard hit ball into right field, fading out of play. Four-seam fastball, 92 miles an hour there by Brian Hudson. No balls and two strikes to Randy Rosarena. Hudson on the mound. Randy in the box. 0-2 pitch. Big swing and a miss. Terrible at bat there for Randy. And that is 2 away. Next up for the Mariners, first baseman Josh Naylor. And we got Sean Burke versus Emerson Hancock tomorrow. And hopefully we'll be able to get that dub tomorrow. First pitch to Naylor, high and away. Four-seam fastball, 88 miles an hour, missing by Hudson. 1-0 count. One-0 pitch. Naylor pops it up. And it goes into the netting, into the second row. And a kid with a Griffey jersey ends up getting the ball in the front row. Good for him. 1 ball and 1 strike from Hudson to Naylor. One pitch. Big swing and a miss. Sweeper, 80 miles an hour there by Brian Hudson. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Josh Naylor. Come on, Josh. One-two pitch. Little dribbler up the middle. Goes over the pitcher's head. And Naylor running as fast as that big body can go. And not in time. And that is out number 3. All right, let's go to the top of the 9th inning and see who's up next here for Chicago. Next up for the White Sox, 0 for 2 with a base on ball and 2 Ks, Munetaka Murakami. Batting second, 0 for 3 with 2 Ks, third baseman Miguel Vargas. And batting third in the 4-hole, shortstop 0 for 3 with 2 Ks, Colson Montgomery. So they're going to go with their 3 best hitters, and hopefully we can find a way to, get out of the inning unscathed, and then, and we can end up getting that 1-0 victory. So Castillo got his ERA from 6.20 down to 6.07. It didn't look like Mooney was coming in, so I'm very curious on who is going to be pitching here in the top of the 9th. I mean, are they going to bring in like an Alex Hoppe or a Cooper Criswell, or are they going to allow Mooney to pitch? Based on, looking in the bullpen, Mooney still, had his hoodie on, so kind of felt like he wasn't going to come in. All right, we're at 160 likes, 40 more to 200. And we're still waiting for our first dono on our dono train. And they're going to have Castillo still be out there? Wow. So Miller, Ferrer, Castillo. Interesting. First pitch to Munetaka Murakami is a ball, 1-0 count. Obviously, Schwarber, number one in home runs, and Murakami there with Aaron Judge in the top three. They got Mooney warming up now. 1-0 pitch. In there for a strike, high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Munetaka Murakami. White Sox challenge. Two balls and no strikes from Castillo to Murakami. 2-0 pitch from Castillo. Big swing and a miss by Murakami. 2 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and no outs. Top of the 9th inning, 1-0 Mariners. Two-one pitch, high and away. Count now is 3 balls and 1 strike to Munetaka Murakami. Come on, Mariner Moose. We need a little bit of luck. Castillo on the mound. Murakami in the box. 3-1 pitch, high and away, and Castillo walks Murakami here in the top of the 9th. Not ideal. Next up is Miguel Vargas. I mean, 3 innings is kind of the max that you would want Castillo to pitch, but I mean, he was electric in the first, part of his run, getting 3 strikeouts, to retire the side, but, a little shaky here. Just got to be able to get out of the jam like he did in the 8th. And they do have Mooney warming up if needed. First pitch to Miguel Vargas, low and away, 1-0 count. Got Hill running for Murakami for a pinch runner. 1-0 pitch in there for a strike looking to Vargas. Nice 4-seam fastball. And Vargas is 0 for 3 today. Hopefully it'll be 0 for 4. I mean, best case scenario, we get a strikeout and a double play or a double play and a strikeout and we can dance and win this very close 1-0 game. 1-1 pitch. Big swing and a miss. Low and away. Nasty slider there by Castillo. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Miguel Vargas. Approaching 50 pitches. He's at pitch 49. One-two pitch, and did he hit him? And Vargas is down. Hopefully he's okay. Did it actually hit him though? I mean, he's on the ground as if he got hit with that pitch. Probably should have brought Mooney in, even though Mooney has been, very up and down. Let's look at the replay. No, it definitely hits him. Got him right in the chest. So Vargas hitting the chest, Hill to second. And now we got runners at first and second with no outs for Colson Montgomery. And again, Dan Wilson, as far as managing the game today, with the decisions that he's made, he gets an F. Again, there's been a lot of things. The one thing that maybe he got right was bringing in Ferrer for Murakami. Maybe that was the one thing, but he's really, skating on thin ice with some of these decisions. Not having Rayleigh come in and Dominic Canzone and, going with Castillo this long. Sometimes when you go and push the boundaries, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And now we're definitely in a little bit of predicament here. Runners at first and second with no outs, top of the 9th. We're only up a run. Momentum starting to shift. I mean, he already pitched him 2 innings, You should have just, but again, we've seen the good Mooney and the bad Mooney, and the same thing that we have right now. Mooney could have done the same thing. He could have walked a guy and hit a guy. We've seen it, a lot this year, right? So we just have to, hope, when Mooney comes in, it's the good version, but he's, been very inconsistent, maybe not as bad as Castillo overall. At least he's had a few good moments this season, but we're definitely in a very tight jam at the moment here in the top of the ninth. Runners at first and second with no outs, not ideal. But a lot of bad decisions by Dan Wilson today. And Dan wants to take Castillo out, but then now the ump is saying that you can't. Fucking Dan. Jesus. I feel like sometimes he's like a little league coach. And a lot of the coaching is just like common sense stuff, that fans could, manage the game better, but this is the world that we live in 2026 with Dan Wilson, I guess. But it's not like Scott Service was any better. He was doing the same dumb shit when he was managing the team too. Little dribbler towards first base to Montgomery and foul. 0-1 count. We're going to need a miracle to win this game now. Oh, 1 pitch. Big swing and a miss. Nasty pitch there by Luis Castillo. No balls and 2 strikes to Colson Montgomery. Nice 4-seam fastball by La Piedra. 94 miles an hour, high and away. Top of the 9th inning. Runners at first and second with no outs. We're hanging on by a thread with a 1-0 lead. Hopefully we can find a way to win this game 1-0. 0-2 pitch. Low and at the knees with the slider missing. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Colson Montgomery. One, 2 pitch. Big swing and a miss. Huge. One of the biggest outs for Luis Castillo in this role. Doing this split, with obviously Bryce Miller, who had a 1-hitter, and then they ended up, taking him out when he had the no-hitter, got 1 hit, bad throw by Joe. They brought in Jose Ferrer to get Murakami. And then now I think you're going to take out Castillo now, and then you're going to bring in Mooney. And let's hope that Mooney can get 2 outs. All right, I hear you, Paisley. Come in, lay down. And if we get the Mooney, the good version of Mooney, we're going to win this game 1-0. But if we get the shaky Mooney, then we're going to end up losing like 2-1 or 3-1. So let's just hope that we can end up getting a double play, or if he can strike out, 2 batters, or, strike out 1 and get a pop-up or a ground out. Just any combination of getting 2 outs. Next up will be Chase Mydroff in the 5-hole, who's 0 for 3 with 2 Ks. And then on deck would be Andrew Benintendi, unless they have someone pinch hit for him as the next batter. Trident's up. Let's go, M's. 25 subs away from 24,100. Looks like we gained 2 subs since the last commercial break. Appreciate you. 23 subs to go. Do 24,100. We're at 168 likes. $32 more to get to 200. With 380 in the room, and we're still looking for our first dono on our dono train, which is odd, but I still have faith that we'll be able to get a few before this one is over. Top of the 9th inning, 1-0 Seattle. Andres Munoz on the mound. Chase Mydroff in the box. Let's go, baby. We need all the luck that we can get. And as long as this is the good Mooney, you know, we should be able to hopefully win this game 1-0. But we'll know in the first 7 pitches. First pitch in there for a strike by Mooney. Good start with that slider. Lost a little bit of balance, but regained his composure. 0-1 count. Top of the 9th inning, runners at first and second with 1 out. Mooney on the mound, Mydroth in the box. 0-1 pitch. Runners are going, and they both go with the double steal, and they're both safe. Yikes. I mean, hopefully they don't tie it up 1-1, you know, and hopefully we can end up winning 2-1 in the bottom of the 9th if it goes that route, but hopefully we can get out of this game with a 1-0 victory. But 1-1 pitch. Little dribbler towards first. Jesus Christ, it gets past Naylor. Runner scores. And then another runner is coming home. Don't let him score. Golly. And just like that, Chase Mydroth with the big hit. And instead of getting the good Mooney, we get the bad Mooney. And now the game is tied, and they potentially can take the lead. We're still going to have one last chance in the bottom of the 9th. But, man, you know, I'm just sick and tired of the lack of hitting. I'm sick and tired when we have a good, you know, pitching performance, when we have other guys come in and let us down. It just has kind of been a repetitive theme. You know, it's like you have this great opportunity with Bryce Miller, you know, and then you have other guys come in and kind of, you know, shit the bed. And again, it's not like the hitters have done their job. They've done terrible today, you know, and then when you had a chance to bring in Dominic Canzone and Luke Raley, you didn't. And another ground ball for another hit. Great. And now another run scores, and the meltdown continues. And now we're probably going to lose the game. Great. Jesus Christ. And again, this is what happens. You know, Mooney used to be really, really good. Top 5, top 10 closer, but not anymore. And now everything is just going off the rails. Brutal. Naylor dove for it. It went out of the glove. And just our luck, right? Now we're down 2-1, you know, and again, Dan Wilson gets an F for managing this game. Benintendi reached on an infield single to second. Vargas scored. Mydroth to third. Now they're showing bunt and foul for Acuna. And, you know, and again, it was hard enough, you know, to get to the position that we were in. And, you know, now we're going to need a fucking miracle. And let alone, they only got 1 out. So unless we get a double play here, we're probably going to be down by 2 runs or more. And, you know, I don't know if we're going to be able to get that in the bottom of the 9th. 0-1 pitch as he shows bunt and has to duck and take a seat from avoid from getting hit by that Munoz pitch. You know, but it's not ideal, you know, when you got guys that you can't trust. And, man, you know, Mooney used to be automatic, but he is terrible this year. 1-1 pitch, popped up, and out of play with the bunt. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Munoz to Acuna. I mean, you can have Castillo in the pen, but just have him pitch for like, you know, 1/2 inning, 2 at the most, no more than that. I mean, our bullpen is very thin as it is. And down goes Acuna, striking out looking, and that is 2 away, but the damage is already done. And now we got runners at first and third for the White Sox for Tristan Peters. First pitch to Peters, big swing and a miss. 0-1 count. And think about how many games, you know, where we've been, you know, 1-0 or 1-1, and then he ends up, you know, giving up, you know, a run or more, and then putting us in a really big hole. Seems like almost every time he gets out there, he puts us in a hole. 0-1 pitch, check swing. Did he go? And he does. No balls and 2 strikes with runners at first and third and 2 outs. Top of the 9th inning, White Sox now up 2-1 when we had the 1-0 lead, and I'm just sick and tired of seeing this version of Mooney. Oh-2 pitch. Check swing. Did he go? And yes, he did. And that is out number 3, but not after blowing another game for the Mariners. And it shows you, like, if Brash never got hurt, I would rather have Brash be the closer because Mooney can't do it. If we stick with Mooney as the closer for the whole year, we're never going to be able to make a deep run. We could still end up, winning the AL West. We could still end up fighting with the Athletics and the Rangers, but if we stick with Mooney for the whole year, it's not going to go well, and we're definitely going to be losing a hell of a lot more games, and I don't know if Dan Wilson is smart enough, when Brash comes back to make him the new closer, but, Bizzardo's not good enough to be the closer. Obviously, Mooney is not good enough to be the closer, and that only leaves really one guy, Matt Brash, and I know they like having Brash, pitch in the 6th or the 7th, and, he's going to be coming off an injury with Gabe Spire, but if we don't make that switch from Mooney to Brash as closer, things are going to unfold not very nicely. And there's a chance, depending on how many more injuries we get, that we potentially could miss the playoffs, if Mooney stays as the closer for the whole year. And I never thought I would say that, but, he's like Castillo, it's just not good, and again, when you got a closer with an ERA above 6, you got a starter that you're doing splits now with Miller with an ERA above 6, that tells the fucking story. You shouldn't have a fucking closer with an ERA of 6 and above, and again, it just sucks that Brash and Spire are injured right now, but they definitely have to make that change. But I don't think Dan Wilson is smart enough to do it. All right, let's go to the bottom of the 9th, and now we need a miracle. We need to get 1 run to tie and then try to win 3-2 in extras, or we get the miracle where we get 2 runs and then we win 3-2 here in the bottom of the 9th. But it feels like, after Mooney came in, he kind of sucked all the life out of us. And I don't know if the players even believe that they can come back. And that's what Mooney does to this team. Sucks all the air out of us and all the positivity that we had. Next up, 0 for 3 with an RBI, third baseman Patrick Wisdom. Batting second, 0 for 2 with a base on ball and a K. You better change this to Luke Raley or Dominic Canzone, but knowing Dan Wilson, he'll probably let Joe hit again. And then last but not least, Mitch Garver. And it looks like Wisdom is going to get changed here for JP Crawford. And again, we have so many close games that are going to be decided by a run or 2. Having a shitty closer, after, being a top 5, top 10 guy for years, this version of Mooney, whether it's mental, his grip on the slider, or both, but man, he fucking sucks. First pitch to JP, in there for a strike. Second pitch, high and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Taylor to Crawford. 1-1 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 1 strike from Taylor to Crawford. 2-1 pitch, big swing and a miss. 2 balls and 2 strikes to JP Crawford. And again, when you're going to go with a righty lineup against a lefty, you got Ref Snyder, Joe, Wisdom, Garver. You don't expect anything from those guys. And then if you don't really get a whole lot out of your studs, Julio, Randy, Naylor, Cole Young, and Cole Emerson, then this is the type of fucking game you get. Big swing and a miss. Down goes JP, and that is 1 away. But again, I've seen a lot of bad managed games by the Mariners this year, but this one might take the cake. This might be the worst job by Dan this year, and he's had some bad managing games today, as well as this season. I mean, again, getting only 1 hit and 1 run isn't good enough, but again, in close, tight games, this was definitely a winnable game that we could have won 1-0. And now we get Luke Raley finally in the game. First pitch into Luke Raley. 4-seam fastball, 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch, low and at the knees. Check swing. Did he go? No, he did not. 1 ball and 1 strike to Luke Raley. And obviously it just stinks, when we have such great pitching performances, out of, Bryce Miller, Emerson Hancock, whoever it may be, and then the bats just aren't there. But again, Dan had an opportunity to sub out Ref Snyder and Joe and didn't, and that could have been the difference between Canzone and Rayleigh, maybe getting some potential big RBIs or home runs to make it a different outcome. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. Down goes Luke Rayleigh, and that is 2 away. And it definitely feels like we're going to end up losing this game 2-1. Fucking Andres Munoz. Fucking offense, man. It's always one thing or another. Once we end up doing something amazing on one end, maybe with the pitching and the defense, and then you get no fucking hitting and then a shit-ass bullpen. Sick of it. But I guess this is the life that we have to deal with, Next up is Dominic Canzone. A little too late here from Dan Wilson, getting Rayleigh and Canzone at the very end of the game. Giving them only one chance to try to be the hero. Not ideal. First pitch into Canzone is a strike. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch. High and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Taylor to Canzone. One-two pitch. Big swing and a miss. And that is ball game. And again, after having a 1-0 lead where we had the 1 run scored in the bottom of the first inning, they end up getting 2 runs here in the top of the 9th. And they celebrate. And another tough loss, And again, it's like we have so many close games. We can't afford to have a shitty closer. We can't afford to have such a lack of hitting, and again, if you're going to run a lineup and you're going to stick to your guns, once the lefty goes out and you bring in a righty, for the other team, make the swap immediately for Luke Rayleigh and Dominic Canzone instead of waiting until the very end of the game. I don't know what Dan was thinking there, and it's still the same result potentially could have happened where we still lose this game, but if you give Luke Rayleigh and Dominic Canzone 2 or 3 at-bats each, at least there's a chance that, you can get a nice run going. But again, with Ref Snyder, Wisdom, Joe, and even though Wisdom was the guy that got the 1 run for us, but with Ref Snyder, Wisdom, Joe, and Garver, not a whole lot to, get excited about. And then, Julio and Rosarina and Naylor and Young and Emerson couldn't get anything going. Castillo gets the loss. And, should have had Castillo, maybe only go 2 innings. And again, Andres Munoz, not trustworthy, and again, Castillo, not trustworthy. Logan Gilbert this year, not trustworthy, and it just sucks that Brash and Spire are injured. We have no Cal and no Donnie. And, obviously we know Cal has struggled a lot, but you never know, when that magic will come around. Let's go over the stats here real quick. All right, leading off for the White Sox, Sam Antonacci, 0 for 4. Batting second, Munitaka Murakami, 0 for 2. Miguel Vargas, 0 for 3. Colson Montgomery, 0 for 4. Chase Mydroth, 1 for 4 with an RBI, one of the heroes. Andrew Benintendi, 1 for 4 with an RBI, the other hero. Jared Kelenic, 1 for 3. Tristan Peters, 1 for 3. And Edgar Caro, 0 for 3. And then on the flip side, Rob Refsnyder, 0 for 4. A guy that has a 109 batting average should never be leading off. Dan Wilson is an idiot. Julio Rodriguez, 1 for 4 with a run. Randy Arozarena, 0 for 3. Naylor, 0 for 3. Patrick Wisdom, 0 for 3 with the RBI with the fielder's choice to get Julio to score from third in the first inning for our only run. Connor Joe, 0 for 2. Mitch Garver 0 for 2. Cole Young 0 for 2. And Colt Emerson 0 for 2. And you know things are bad when Young and Emerson only have those 2 at-bats and whatnot. So, brutal. Hopefully tomorrow will be a little bit better. Not only, for the Mariners, but also the support here on the channel. Again, we normally don't, have any support on a stream. Usually we get, a few donos on the dono train, and maybe that has something to do with it as well. So final score, White Sox 2, Mariners 1. We're going to be live tomorrow on Wednesday afternoon at 1:10 Pacific, and hopefully the dono train will be better, as well as the Mariners, and hopefully we'll be able to rebound from this bad loss and terrible managing, by Dan Wilson. This, bottom line, obviously the bats did not come alive, so it's not just on Dan. Obviously the hitters didn't do their job, but a lot of the moves that Dan made, not really ideal. And Munoz, losing us another game. So not ideal, but again, we do have Emerson Hancock on the mound tomorrow. So I have belief that we can end up winning the series, and we can get a little bit more support with the likes, the subs, the views, and the donos specifically. So final score, White Sox 2, Mariners 1. And I got one question for you. Who talks sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, and I am out. Tridents up and go Mariners.